Good afternoon, Rakesh sir. This is Vinay. How are you, sir? आप म्यूट है.
Yes, good afternoon. How are you?
Good to see you, sir. Once again.
Hello, good afternoon to Nandini ji, Mr. Alok, everyone.
Yes, sir. Rakesh sir, good afternoon.
We are live now, sir. We are live now, ma'am. You can start.
Start. Good afternoon, everyone who are present here, giving your valuable time to us. This is me, Nandini Rawat, hosting this prestigious online Train the Trainer program conducted by Physical Education Foundation of India in collaboration with Ministry of Sports and Youth Affairs. Today, we have our first speaker, eminent speaker is Dr. Rakesh Kumar. He is presently working as in Physical Education Department in King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals in Saudi Arabia. He has also been awarded for outstanding service at King Fahd University of Petroleum and Minerals, Saudi Arabia. He was also awarded for Passion and Devotion by 7th Asian Conference on Kinesiology in Korea. Another cap into his feather is another feather in his cap was Certificate of Excellence for Outstanding Performance presentation by Western Society of Kinesiology and Wellness Conference, USA. First rank, he also secured first rank fellowship in Sports Sciences, Apollo Hospital, India, gold medalist in Masters of Physical Education and Sports from University of Delhi. We welcome you, sir. There is a lot of achievements we have, sir have. So if I keep on counting these achievements of him, I will take whole 1 hour. So I'm not wasting much time. I will just welcome the sir. Welcome, sir. Sir, welcome. We are very pleased to have you here with us. It is a privilege to have you here. I will just take a moment by just starting this session by quoting quote: "Each child comes to school with a dream. Do we help them to realize it or destroy it? As we are the teacher, we are the nurturers for the students, and most of our attendees are physical education teachers." The screen is yours now, sir.
Thank you so much, Nandini ji, for introducing me to the participants. And it is my proud privilege that I am here, to give a lecture on this series of Train the Trainer, which is, I think, it's a wonderful initiative by the PEFI. And I congratulate, Physical Education Foundation of India to organize such events. All these events are very important because, whatever knowledge we professionals we have, it is our duty, and to share that, with other professionals, and that's how the knowledge spread. And so this is an excellent platform, and for that I congratulate first Professor A.K. Uppal sir, who is the president of PEFI, and I congratulate, Dr. Piyush Jain, the Secretary General of the PEFI, for taking the lead, and organizing this event. And I can see that when I gone through the list of speakers who are in, this program, there are around 20 speakers. So they are all eminent, and they are many of them are actually my teachers there, So I am so proud that I am sharing, this stage, in this program along with many of my teachers, and I'm blessed for that. And after my lectures, I had, wonderful, a speaker. We had Dr. Sandhya Tiwari ji, who is also, my teacher, and under whom guidance, we all basically, I have nurtured, throughout, my career.
That's great.
Yeah, so without taking much time, okay, first of all, I can see that there are so many, attendees there, more than 1,000, which shows the intent.
Yes.
Of the learner, that how much you want to learn, and this shows, not only the intent for the learner, but the zeal and enthusiasm of the PEFI, that how, they organize this event, and again the belief of the participants, in the PEFI, that if a PEFI is organizing this event, and when they see the speakers and all the attendees are coming. So this is a very good sign, and I'm sure this will take PEFI to the new heights, and this will encourage the PEFI to organize such events on regular interval. So my suggestion to the PEFI is that such events should not become a once a while event. So it should be a regular feature in your program, and certainly the knowledge we share is always beneficial to all of us. So with this, a very warm good evening to all of you, and good afternoon to all of you. For me, it is a good afternoon here. It's just 12 in noon. So I will first share my screen with you all. Just give me a moment. And
while sir is sharing his screen, I want all the participants, if you have any questions, please write down your questions in the comments, question answer section. Yeah, it's perfect.
Okay, so please, all the participants, if you have any comments, any questions, you can write as said by Nandini ji in your chat box, and after the conclusion of my lecture, I'll be pleased to answer all those questions. Yes. I have prepared my lecture for 50 minutes, Nandini ji, and if you feel that I'm exceeding my time, you are free to please interrupt me and stop me, and I will just stop there.
Sure, sir. I will do that.
Give me a 5 minutes window to close where if you see that. Give me a warning for 5 minutes.
Sure.
Thank you so much. So today's lecture, is we have seen that I have seen that past few days there are very good topics have been covered, and I think this in the PEFI there are wide variety of topic, and that's very important because physical education cannot be confined to just one area. So this profession, it is a combination of various elite disciplines, various academic fields. So I will be talking today on the carbohydrate and sports performance, and we'll explore some myths and facts. Of course, before I go on to explore some myths and facts, I will first give you in 30-35 minutes information about carbohydrate and how the carbohydrate can affect the sports performance and what are the requirements of carbohydrates. Very important. It looks very simple. Okay, we have to take 45% or 60% of calories from carbohydrate, and no, that's not enough. In just one line, we cannot finish that. That okay, this is a requirement. So there's a lot behind that to understand why and how you need how much carbohydrate. So taking my deliberations further, let me just quickly move to my first screen. We all know that the body cells need energy from glucose, which comes from carbohydrates. Clearly understood. And we consume carbohydrates in foods and beverages as a simple sugars, starch, and non-digestible fibers. And all of the carbohydrates we consume, whether from a soft drink, whether we take from a piece of a fruit or from a whole grain slice of a bread, or an energy bar, which are nowadays used by many athletes. They are all digested in the small intestine and absorbed into the bloodstream as simple sugars such as glucose, such as fructose and galactose. Okay. So the starch which is found in pasta, in rice grains, etc., are actually large groups of glucose molecules that take more time for absorption and digestion. So simple sugars, they can be easily digested and they can be quickly released in the bloodstream, whereas starch take long times. We'll discuss all those things later on when we talk about the glycemic index and all those things. And these starches which is found in the whole foods also contain number of vitamins, minerals and fibers. So they are again very important. Now, can you, Nandini ji, I am seeing one pop-up like 47 participants raised hand, because this is like it's coming on my screen every time. So if you can handle this, because now I don't know, I have to do something here. Invite everyone, mute all. Okay, let me click this. There is something on the screen, coming every time. Okay, so please handle that, Nandini ji. Okay, so all carbohydrates contain calories, which is equals to 4 kilocalories per gram. Okay, and you know that. So glucose is essential for normal brain function. We know that, and the brain accepts only glucose as energy. And also glucose is used to fuel active muscles. And how much glucose is stored? Basically, glucose is stored in your body as a liver and muscle glycogen, and which is around 400 to 600 grams. So this is the amount of glycogen which is available in your body when you exercise. Now the glucose which is stored in the liver is constantly used to ensure that blood glucose does not drop too low. And this is one problem we may face when we do long exercise, a prolonged exercise, our blood glucose may fall down, and for that the glycogen which is stored in the liver, it helps not to, and there are other factors which we will discuss later on. So whenever our muscles are active for more than a few seconds, glucose is also the preferred fuel. So the greater the exercise intensity, the more reliant muscle become on glucose as a fuel. So if you do very intense exercise, the preferred source of the for the exercise will be glucose. So it is directly related with the intensity of exercise. And so this is the one reason why low carbohydrate diets are not recommended for active people. So I hear so many like such information that low carbohydrate diet is good, and people are not, even many athletes, they are now, that's a misconception basically. So low carbohydrate diet is certainly not good for the active people. Please, all the participants, I request you personally, don't raise your hand, because when you're raising a hand, there's a pop-up on my screen and it interferes in my slides. Please don't raise the hand. So this is interfering. So I will not take any question during the presentations. So you can raise your hand once I finish my lecture. Please, follow certain rules. Okay. Nandini ji, can you just stop? Can you disable the raising of hand? Please disable that feature that where participants cannot raise hand during the lecture, because it is popping up on my PowerPoint.
I'm doing that.
Please disable for all the participants.
I request all the participants, please lower down your hands. Please do not, raise your hands in between the slides as well. Sir is presenting his presentation. You can just write your questions in the comment section or question answer sections. I am taking the questions from there and I will ask after this presentation. Please be patient with us.
Okay, so next is the carbohydrate recommendations. How much carbohydrate you should take? So generally recommendations or guidelines are expressed in the percentage of total energy. So this is what you have been knowing, and we have learned over the years that you need around 45 to 65% of carbohydrates, of your total energy requirements. But however, from the exercise point of view, the absolute quantity of carbohydrate is more important than the percentage of energy. That's very important. We'll discuss that in coming slide. So the estimation of carbohydrate for athletes depends upon carbohydrate required for muscle glycogen restoration or the amount which is spent during exercise. And this estimation should be in line with athlete's body and muscle mass. So therefore, the carbohydrate guidelines should be based on grams per kilogram of athlete's body weight. So how much carbohydrate you need, now we'll discuss in the next slide. Because when we go for such type of estimation, it is more user-friendly and a better practical way to assess the requirement of the carbohydrate. And it's easier for athlete also to determine how much content of carbohydrate he has in his meal or how much he required. So the range, what you need, in a day is 5 to 12 grams of carbohydrate per kg of your body weight. That's a wide range. Now let's see how this wide range is distributed according to various type of activities. So if you are involved in a light training, then you need, light training means a low intensity exercise or a skill-based exercise. Then you need around 3 to 5 grams of carbohydrate per day. Okay, 3 to 5 grams per kg. I will not use per kg word every time. So when I'm saying 3 to 5 grams, it means it is a per kg of your body weight. Okay. So then if you are involved in a moderate intensity training program, which lasts for 60 minutes duration, so if you're say training, doing a training or involved in a competition which lasts for 60 minutes, then you need around 5 to 7 grams of carbohydrate. Okay. If you are involved in a moderate to high intensity exercise which lasts for 1 hour to 3 hours, then your requirement shoots up to 6 to 10 grams of carbohydrate. And if you're involved in a very high intensity exercise which lasts for 4 to 5 hours, like for example, if you train very long hours training, or if you are your competition, like for example, you do a marathon running and all, like I am, as most of you might be knowing that I'm doing marathon running, and in the recently just in a week before I completed, one of the full marathon, it's a virtual New York City marathon. So I am very well, I will share some personal experiences also during my lecture, that how, the carbohydrate consumption during the exercise, before the exercise, and during your training can actually improve your performances. So I was there at, that if you are training for 4 to 5 hours, then your requirement should be 8 to 12 grams per kg of your body weight. So that much carbohydrate. So this is a more practical approach. Then we say, okay, 45 to 30%, 45 to 65%. So it should be based on the grams per kg of your body weight. I hope this is clear to you all. Now let's talk about whenever we talk about carbohydrate, and in carbohydrate, there's so many foods, like for example, you take milk or banana or oranges or simple sugars or the starches. The important thing is the glycemic index and the glycemic load. So this is, without understanding these 2 points, you cannot, decide what type of carbs you have to take before, during, and after the exercise. So let's understand first what is a glycemic index. So GI indicates how much certain food raises blood glucose levels when consumed in isolation. So it is an index for classifying carbohydrate foods based on how quickly they are digested and absorbed into the bloodstream. So any food which can be very quickly digested and quickly released into the bloodstream is a high GI food. We call it as a high glycemic index food. So the more quickly blood glucose rises after ingestion, the higher the glycemic index is for that food. And to estimate this, we have the glucose and the white bread. Glucose and the white bread, they have the GI value of 100, and to which all other foods are compared. So whenever we want to compare any food, for example, you want to compare the banana, with glucose, then to know the GI index of the, banana, then we have to compare it with the glucose and carbohydrate. So let me just make you understand by giving an example. If we say that certain food has a GI of 70, then we say that this is a food and the GI of this food is 70. So what does it mean? It means that consuming 50 grams of the food in question, for which we are talking about, provides an increase of blood glucose 70% as great as that of ingesting 50 grams of pure glucose. So this is how we calculate the GI of any food. And the glycemic load, what is it? It is a way of assessing the overall glycemic effect of a diet based on both glycemic index and number of carbohydrate provided per serving. So now again, the glycemic load is more important because it's not only the glycemic index of the food, but also how much quantity of carbohydrate is provided by that food in one serving. So we calculated this, the glycemic load equals to GI into carbohydrate content per serving, and we divide it by the 100. Now moving forward to understand more about this glycemic index and glycemic load, the foods with low GI give slower and sustained release of glucose to the blood. So this is again, that's why I said, no, this will help you to understand what you should eat before the competition, what you should eat after the competition, and what you should eat during your exercise. On the other hand, food with high GI cause a rapid and short-lived increase in the blood glucose. So this you understand first. So the low GI foods are recommended, and that's why, because of this fact, the low GI foods are recommended before exercise, because they provide a sustained and slower release of blood glucose, right? So they are recommended before the exercise. On the other hand, moderate and high GI food are recommended during and after the exercise, because during exercise you need an immediate glucose in your blood, and you need an immediate glucose or carbohydrate after the exercise, so that you can you can replenish whatever glycogen you have lost. So which are some examples of these type of foods I can give you here, and we can find more examples through our search later on. So high GI food are, the first is a glucose is a molecule, and then the food in that are bread, potatoes, breakfast cereals, and sports drinks. They all give very high, they are very high GI food, and they release the glucose into your blood very quickly. And the moderate GI food are soft drinks, basically the oats, tropical fruits, like, banana and mangoes. So they are, basically a moderate GI food, and they can also be consumed during your training or competition. I consume banana normally, when I run my marathons. I start, immediately after 15-20 minutes, I start consuming the small portion of banana to get constant energy during my training or my competition. And the low GI food are basically the milk. Milk is a very good source of low GI food, and it is very, very important, and gives you a very slow and sustained release of carbohydrate into your into the bloodstream. And the yogurt, lentils, pastas, nuts, fruits like apples and oranges, they are all low GI food. Now let's talk about another thing, which is whenever we talk about carbohydrate, I think everybody talks about this term, glycogen supercompensation. So in other term for this is a carbohydrate loading. So carbohydrate loading will only benefit athletes involved in intense and continuous endurance training, which lasts for more than 90 minutes. So don't load yourself with carbohydrate if your training or competition is less than 90 minutes. So accumulating glycogen stores above normal will not benefit athletes to exercise harder in short duration exercises. So if you are involved in a short duration exercise, there will be no benefit of accumulating excess glycogen stores. Rather, if you do that, it may affect performances negatively because of the stiffness and the weight gain. Okay. So anyone who is involved in a carbohydrate loading, the athlete must be a trained endurance runner. If you are not a trained runner, you should not involved in such type of carbohydrate loading, or else the loading will not be effective. So the glycogen stores are specific to the muscle groups used. So again, remember, whenever you do this carbohydrate loading, this is a specific to the muscle groups. It's not that you can load anywhere in your body. So the glycogen stores are specific to the muscle groups used, exercise that are used to deplete the glycogen stores. So when you are depleting your glycogen stores in this process, what exercises are you using? They must be the same that athlete will use in the competition event. So there is a feeling of stiffness and heaviness in some athletes. So when you do the carbohydrate loading, so there could be a feeling of stiffness and heaviness in some athletes because of the increased glycogen storage. And why it is so? We all know that whenever you store 1 gram of glycogen in your body, there is an additional storage of 3 grams of water in your muscles. So you actually, in one way, it is beneficial also, especially for the long distances. And this stiffness normally does not remain for long, and it usually disappears when you start exercising. Okay. Now, the traditional way of glycogen supercompensation, what you all must be knowing is that there is a 6-day approach. It's a classic way of supercompensation, but this approach has been changed now. We'll discuss that. So the classic 6-day approach is there's a 3 days of depletion phase in which you do a strength training, very hard training with very low carbohydrate diet. And it is then followed with a 3 days of a loading phase where you load yourself with high carbohydrate diet, and your training comes down. Okay, very low training. But the latest research found that glycogen stores in your muscles were found to be elevated to same extent. So this is the latest research. Now athletes are involved in a 3-day approach. So what the research has found that the stores in your glycogen stores in your muscles can be elevated to the same extent after 3 days of high carbohydrate diet, that is 10 grams of per kg of your body weight, and tapered training. So if you just load your muscles with a high carbohydrate diet in the 3 days before the competition with very low training or no training, it is equally beneficial to that 6 days classic approach. So this modified carbohydrate loading protocol is more practical. And this is a more practical because it helps to avoid the fatigue and extreme diet required, which is associated with the depletion phase. So that's why many athletes are now going with a 3-day approach, and even there is a 1-day approach available. Now people they do the carbohydrate loading just 1 day before the exercise, which is also equally beneficial. So high carbohydrate supplements, are they good? they do not replace regular food. First, understand that when you take these high carbohydrate supplements, they cannot be a replacement for your regular food. They just help to supply supplemental energy during the prolonged and heavy exercise. If the athlete has, like I personally, I have run almost now 6-7 full marathons and almost 10 half marathons in the last 2-3 years. And I'm not using supplements during my, training also, and during, my, competition also. So if the athlete has no difficulty in taking or eating enough conventional food, if you are comfortable with that, then such supplements basically does not offer any advantage except that of the convenience. So only thing with the supplement is the convenience. They are easy to carry, they are easy to take, and exactly how much grams of carbs you are taking. So it's more practical and convenient, but there's no any other additional advantage for that. So they should be either consumed before or after the exercise, or within, between the meals. And even the ultra runners, they also use them, or the marathon runners, they use them during the exercise. Now I'm showing you some of the graphs and pictures here, which will certainly help you to understand, like exercise and diet can greatly affect the glycogen levels. So if you see here, if your initial, if you take a low carbohydrate diet, then your initial glycogen levels will be very low, and you cannot sustain exercise for very long time, not more than maybe 60 minutes. If you see in the graph, and if you see at the top end of the line, if you are taking a high carb diet, then it can, increase your initial muscle glycogen level to even like 3 grams, per 100 gram of the muscle, and you can sustain that exercise up to 180 minutes very easily. Then again here, this is very important, especially for the people like who are involved in in a training where you want to lose fat or you want to lose weight basically. So if you see, if your aerobic capacity, if your aerobic power, if your VO2 max is more, then more energy will come from the fat. If your VO2 max or your aerobic power is less, then more energy will come from the fat. Sorry, if you have more VO2 max, then more energy will come from the carbohydrate, and with the low VO2 max or low aerobic power, more energy will come from the fat. And there is a point called crossover point, which you see here in the screen. So if you do a good endurance training, we can shift this crossover point to the more to the right side. So initially, the energy comes from the fat when you start the exercise, and when your intensity is very low. Let's use the word intensity here, which you will understand better. If your intensity is very low, and initially the more percentage of energy comes from the fat, but as you increase the intensity, this percentage or ratio of energy starts shifting towards the carbohydrate, and you can see that if with very high intensity exercise, most of the energy comes from the carbohydrates. So this you should understand, that what type of exercise when you're doing, you are getting energy whether from the carbs or whether you're getting it from the fat. And again here, this graph also shows you a high carbohydrate diet. If you take a very high carbohydrate diet, it can replenish glycogen stores better than a low carbohydrate diet. So it is always recommended that you should take always a high carbohydrate diet post exercise or post your any training schedule or a competition, so which can very fast or in a better way replenish your glycogen stores, and which is very, very important. It's very important that post exercise we need to replenish all glycogen lost as quickly as possible. Otherwise our performance may hamper in the coming sessions. Now, how much carbohydrate is required by you before the exercise? Before you start exercising, or before a training, or before you start your competition, what's the requirement? So the research suggests that athletes should consume around 1 to 4 grams of carbohydrate up to 1 to 4 hours before exercise. It means, for example, if your competition starts at 10 a.m., then at 9 a.m. you can take around 70 grams of carbohydrate if you are 70 kilo. At 8 a.m. you can take 140 grams. So like that, so 4 hours before you can take 4 grams of carbohydrate per kg of your body weight. So this is how you should consume the carbohydrate before your training and before your competition, that is 1 to 4 hours before the exercise. So 1 hour before 1 gram, 2 hours before 2 grams, 3 hours before exercise is a 3 gram, and 4 hours before exercise you should take 4 grams of carbohydrate per kg of your body weight. I think this will make your like estimation very easy in future, your diet programs. So if you cannot, now again, if you cannot eat a breakfast, many times we are involved in exercise, or, like when we go for a training or we go for a competition, we are not able to eat breakfast. Like for example, many times when I go to run my marathons, I have to travel to other country, and the marathons are normally at morning 6 a.m. So I have to wake up early, and there's no time for breakfast basically. So I have to rely on whatever I have, consumed in the previous night. So if you can't eat breakfast before the exercise because of the time availability, then you can consume around 30 grams of easily digestible carbohydrate just 5 minutes prior to your exercise or your competition. And this may improve your performance. And what you can do is you can take a banana. Normally I take like one full banana, which can give you around 25 to 30 grams of, carb, or you can take a sports gels or a sports drink. Now the liquid meals, again, the question comes, many people, they want to know, should we take the liquid or the solid? So liquid meals can be preferred closer to the competition as compared to the regular meal. So they have, because these liquid meals, they have a shorter gastric emptying time, they can quickly, pass on through your, GI tract. And this may help to avoid pre-competitive nausea. This is very common, and very common with even the great athletes. Whenever I run marathons, even just 10 minutes before the start of marathon, I am normally in the washrooms. And many, not me, I can see that many runners, they are queued up in the washroom because that's the competitive nausea and before the finishing line. So it's very important for such athletes that, the liquid meals are preferred. So because they produce a low stool residue and hence helpful in not gaining more weight, especially for the competitions where weight is also measured. So this also has to be taken care by you. So if you consume carbohydrate on the morning of endurance event, it will help to maintain level of blood glucose during the prolonged exercise. Because as I said before, when you do a prolonged exercise which lasts for more than 2 hours, so your blood glucose level can drop down significantly. So you need to, be careful, that, you consume, carbohydrate on that day when you are in the morning of that day when you are involved in very high intensity training, in prolonged training. So since you are in an overnight fast, taking 200 to 300 grams of carbohydrates around 2 to 4 hours before exercise will certainly improve endurance performance. Now, what should be, there's a question again about 1 hour before exercise, and there are some, different research give different, idea about this. So initially it was not advised to eat carbohydrate before an hour of exercise, but however subsequent studies contradict this finding. Now the pre-exercise meal is found to be effective in improving performance. So the decrease in the blood glucose, and why many athletes they don't take, because when you take a pre-exercise meal, it can actually decrease the blood glucose level, in initial minutes of your running or of your exercise, because when you eat anything, it activates the insulin, and more insulin is available in your blood, which actually for a short time decrease your blood glucose level. So this decrease in the blood glucose level in the first 20 minutes of exercise is self-correcting with no apparent effect on athletes, and this is according to a research a study which I have quoted here. So the smaller number of athletes react to this negatively, but not everyone, and the certainly the reasons are not exactly known why they react so. But we can counter this with the help of taking a low GI food, basically low GI carbohydrates, just few minutes before the exercise. Like for example, the beans and pasta, maybe around 2 hours before the exercise. And also the epinephrine, norepinephrine, these growth hormones, they can actually inhibit the release of insulin, and it will counter the insulin effect in the reducing blood glucose level. So we should not be worrying that much about the reduction of blood glucose level in the initial phase of your exercise or your competition. So actually there is no critical evidence that athletes will benefit from a low GI pre-exercise meal. So again, it is whether you get benefit or not, it is still a question. It's not very well established, especially in case where athletes can refuel themselves during the exercise. So again, it's very there are individual differences are there. Some athletes, they prefer to refuel themselves during the exercise. Others, they don't feel it comfortable because of the how they the systems respond to the food. So it again depends upon person to person. So if you can fuel yourself during the exercise, then there is no actually benefit of taking low GI food pre-exercise. So, but indeed, such pre-exercise meals will be of benefit in a situation where athletes cannot consume carbohydrate during prolonged event. So if you cannot consume, like personally, I feel little upset. My stomach may get upset if I take too much carbohydrate during exercise. So I have to rely more on what I do, what I eat before the event. So another question for the anaerobic activity, see if you're involved in an exercise which is not aerobic in nature, like for example, you run a 100-meter sprint. So consuming high GI food like glucose immediately before the sprint or a weightlifting will not provide any quick burst of energy. And this is again a misconception, and many athletes I have seen that even before 100 meters, so there is no point, taking, this high GI food before, such type of events, because there is always an adequate ATP and creatine phosphate, and your muscle glycogen stored for such activities. So it is sufficient for that short duration of exercise. Now, what are the requirements of carbohydrate during exercise? For exercise which lasts for less than 45 minutes, consuming carbohydrate is neither practical nor necessary. So if it is less than 45 minutes, you don't have to consume anything, during your exercise. However, small amounts of carbohydrates from a sports drinks or a food may enhance performance of athlete during high intensity exercise, which lasts for 45 to 75 minutes. That's again a small amount, not that much required. Okay. Now, you need 30 to 60 grams of carbohydrate, per hour during the endurance and high intensity exercise, which lasts for 1 to 2.5 hours. So if you are exercising or you are training or competition which lasts up to 3 hours roughly, then you need around 30 to 60 grams every hour. So you have to consume carbs every hour, 30 to 60 grams, and this should started in your initial start of the exercise, not towards the end. On the other hand, if your exercise lasts for, say more than 3 hours, or, then you need around 80 to 90 grams that, of carbohydrate per hour, exercise. Now, carbohydrate requirements during exercise, let's continue further with that. And the research indicates that the maximal, now this is again very important, that how much we have to consume, and how much we have to consume depends upon how much carbohydrate or the glucose is absorbed in your intestine, right? That will decide how much you consume. So the research indicates that the maximum intestinal absorption rate of glucose is 1 to 1 gram of glucose per minute. It means you can only absorb maximum 1 to 1 gram of glucose per minute. So in 60 minutes, you can just maximum, you can use a 60 gram of glucose, not more than that. So if you are taking a 120 gram of carb, or, then it will not be of any use. So you should not take more quantity, because the more quantity will not get any benefit to you. So, but in this figure of 1.1 gram, several factors such as exercise intensity, muscle glycogen saturation, your fitness level, and the mixture of carbohydrates ingested can alter this rate, and this rate can go up to 2.4 grams per minute. But it depends upon, as I said, there are several factors, but means you have to combine different carbs. Suppose, for example, if you take only just banana every time, then it will not give you more than 1 gram. But if you combine different carbs, then it can go up to 2.4 grams per minute. But then again, this is, it has to be carefully planned. So if there is an excess intake of carbohydrate, so if you think that you can ingest more, which actually not, but if you take more carbohydrate, it can cause cramping and it can cause diarrhea, because any carbohydrate which is not absorbed in your body can remain in your GI tract. So, and that's why there is a stomach upset with many athletes during the long races, and they have to rush to the washrooms because of that. So this should be very carefully planned. And all this planning cannot be just done, by reading or by listening or in just one go. All these things are done, by a regular experiment during your training phases. So even for me, I have till now, I'm not able to find an exact proportion and exact, very suitable diet for me. But of course, I'm improving with every. So this experiment you have to do during your training phase, so that you don't face any problem in your competitions. Now, next important thing is how much carbohydrate after the exercise. So we have covered two things now, before the exercise and the during the exercise. Now after the exercise, which is equally important. Because many times our competitions we have in the morning, we have a competition, then we have again, the competition in the afternoon and maybe again the evening. So there is a the schedules are very packed. So there is a depletion of muscle glycogen stores whenever you involved in any training or a competition. So therefore, athletes should consume carbohydrate immediately after the first exercise session. So if you have a competition in the morning, for example, so you should then immediately take, the carbohydrate to maximize the recovery time between the two sessions, or between the two competitions on the same day and within first 8 hours. So athletes should eat around 1 to 1.2 grams of carbohydrate per kg of your body weight for the first 4 hours after glycogen depletion exercise. And here also important is if you take a smaller amounts of carbohydrate frequently, that is every 15 to 30 minutes, it will further enhance the muscle glycogen synthesis. So during the longer periods of recovery, if your recovery period is more than say it's 24 hours, then you don't have to bother about this 4 hours approach, and this then you can spacing of your carbohydrate consumption does not matter as long as you consume enough carbohydrate for that day requirement, for your daily requirement. So when to consume carbohydrate after exercise? So as we know that replenishment may take around 20 hours or more. So once you deplete your carbohydrate source, it can go up to 20 hours or more to replenish all what you lost. So the research again here suggests that muscles absorbs blood glucose and restore glycogen at a higher rates when carbohydrates are ingested within 2 hours after cessation of a training or a competition. So you must take within 2 hours. That's very, very important. So if you delay it by 4 hours, for example, then or more, you will be cutting the glycogen synthesis rate in half compared to when carbohydrates are consumed immediately after the exercise. So more you delay, the more time it will take to replenish your lost glycogen stores. As we discussed before, you can take either liquid or solid, both are equally good, and they both promote similar glycogen restoration rate after ingestion of equal amount of liquid and solid form. However, here the individual preferences is better. So some people they like liquid because of according to their how their body react to the such foods. So some athletes are ready for the full meal after exercise. That for me, after running a marathon, I cannot eat. It makes I just rely on the liquid so that I can replenish my lost glycogen immediately after exercise. So some athletes can go for a full meal while others have a small appetite after exercise because appetite is lost for first few hours after long and prolonged exercise. So for them, the liquid is a good option. So again, this is depend upon individual to individual. Now the carbohydrate alone or carbohydrate protein diet, what should you take after the exercise? So they both can, when we talk about in terms of the glycogen resynthesis, they both are equally good. So they both can enhance glycogen resynthesis post exercise. But however, at least initial recovery meal, whenever you whether you do endurance training or you do training in the gym, recovery meal should include 15 to 25 grams of high quality protein. So it should be combined with the carbohydrate, in addition to his, requirements of the carbohydrate. For example, you can take a 500 ml of milk, which gives you roughly around 16 grams of protein. Or you can take 2 to 3, normal size eggs, which can give you around 14 to 21 grams of proteins. So this is done to increase the net muscle protein balance, to promote tissue repair, and to enhance adaptations involving synthesis of new proteins. So remember one thing, all these what I have given to you are general recommendations. So there are still, if you see in different books, so there are, but not too much variation. There may be some variations, but not that much variation. So these are just recommendations, and these should be adjusted according to the athlete's total energy requirements, his specific training requirements, and feedback from training and competitions. Now, how much carbohydrate? Again, let's still something more important here is left, which is that, as I said, you need around 1 to 1 grams of carbs after your exercise finishes, and this should be consumed within 30 minutes of end of training of competitions. Like if we take the example of a 68 kg athlete, he needs around 68 to 82 grams of carbohydrate, and for that I have given 3 sample meals immediately, which can be taken immediately after exercise. You can take a banana and 200 grams of yogurt. So this will give you around 68 to 82 grams of carbs. You can go for a 200 ml of juice or a 3 slice of a bread. And you can go for again like 220 ml of milk and 2 cups of cereal. So all these can give you, the required carbohydrate, what you need immediately after the exercise. Now let's come to some of the myths and the facts about carbohydrates. We'll discuss them now, and which, and basically this, many of these nutritional messages, which you see in the media or in the commercial ads, in the fitness centers, they are misguided. And many people, many of us, we get very easily attracted to this, these nutritional messages because they are very attractive. The labeling is very good, the advertisement is very good, but actually there is a lot of misconception which is around us. The first one is a training low controversy. Training low means when I talk about low means we are talking about the carbohydrate. So if you look in theory, training low enhances training stimulus and increases the ability to utilize fat as a fuel and less reliance on carbohydrates. But there is no clear evidence till date which suggests that training low improves endurance performance. So still it is widely accepted that training with high carbohydrate allows athlete to train hard and also improve his performance. However, if you are training on a low carbohydrates, it may interfere with the intensity and volume of your endurance training. Even if you want to experiment it, still if you feel that you want to experiment, you want to try, you should do in the beginning of your training cycle so that it does not affect your performance adversely in the competitions. So still the high carbohydrate is recommended for high intensity training sessions and also when athlete is preparing for the competitions. Now next, important is a liquid or so. There's a lot of debate going on, that you should take a liquid or solid, and this we have discussed before also. So there is no difference in glycogen synthesis between liquid or solid form of carbohydrate, and we have discussed that before. Okay, so athletes are using so many wide range of liquid foods, gels, etc. during the training and competitions. Both liquid and solid forms are equally effective. Okay, so they both have their own advantages. Like liquid carbohydrate promotes consumption of water. So with that, you also add water to your body, right? And it avoids dehydration during exercise. While the high carbohydrate foods like bars and gels, they can easily be carried by athlete and they give them both variety and the satiety. So they have their both advantages. So both are but equally good. Now, white bread is a nutritionally worthless. It is a waste of. This is again, it's not a fact. This is a fiction. We say the white bread is very bad. It's not like that. The fact is that it is not true. This statement is not true. Although it's not a whole grain. We know that white bread is not a whole grain, but it's not a bad food. It can be easily balanced. So important thing is how you balance food. So it can be easily balanced into the wholesome diet. So if you're taking a wholesome diet in a day, then you can easily, balance that white bread into your meal. So the most of the white breads, they are enriched with the vitamin B and iron. So if we eat only whole grains, you say, okay, I want to eat only whole grains, then we might not get enough of folates or enough of vitamin B. So enriched white flour is the primary source of folate for many people, particularly those who eat suboptimum amounts of fruits and vegetables. The next, the fiction is carbohydrate fattening? This is again, especially the people who are like on course of losing weight, they always, talk about this, that carbohydrate is fattening. Fact is that carbohydrate is not at all fattening in itself. So we know there are 3 macronutrients: carbs, proteins, and the fats, right? And the carbs and proteins, they give equal calories, that is 4, while the fat gives you 9 calories, just more than a double of the fat. It is the excess calories that results in the fattening, not the carbohydrate. When you take the excess calories, that will make you overweight. So more specifically, the excess calories from the fat. You have to understand that conversion of excess calorie to fat from the carbohydrate is limited. It's not easy to convert because you burn carbohydrate when you exercise. That's the first and the preferred source of fuel. So the body prefers to burn carbohydrate and stores fat. That's the preference of body. So if you have carbs and you have fat, so body will try to store the fat and body will try to burn the carbohydrates. because the metabolic cost of converting the excess calories from the carbohydrate into the fat is very high, almost 23% of the ingested calories. So on the other hand, excess fat can be very easily stored in your body. So carbohydrate is not fattening, it is the excess calorie in a day what you're taking, which makes you basically, overweight. So another fiction is, which is again very important from the point of view of the glycogen, is the athletes lose fitness on the rest days. That's not true. The fact is you will not lose fitness on the rest days. Actually, your strength and endurance is enhanced by providing better fueled muscles. So your muscles are fueled better on those days, and this in turn actually, enhance the recovery process and your performance. So remember always that the bad things, they happen on the hard exercising days, and the good things always happen you are on the rest. So underestimating the rest will lead to injuries. It will lead to the chronic glycogen depletion, which is very, very important, and the chronic fatigue. So understand that. Now, there's another concept called bonking, which is again very much prevalent, and this again happened because of our lack of understanding about the carbohydrates. Now, the depletion of muscle glycogen causes athlete to hit the wall. We know that. So when you exercise for a long time, especially I experienced that when I reached 33 kilometers and 35 kilometers of my marathon, I experienced that hitting the wall because all my glycogen muscle stores are depleted. But whereas the depleted liver glycogen causes them to bonk. So if there's a depletion in your liver glycogen, it will cause them to bonk, means you may crash, or your liver glycogen actually maintain, because the liver glycogen, it's maintain your normal blood sugar levels in your body, and which is essential for your brain. So despite adequate muscle glycogen, athlete may feel uncoordinated. You may be having enough glycogen stores in your muscles, but still the athlete may feel uncoordinated, lightheaded, and unable to concentrate because of liver not releasing adequate sugar into the blood. So the muscles and brain, they both require glucose, and muscles can store glucose and burn fat, but the brain cannot. So this means you must consume food, you must consume carbohydrate close to any vigorous exercise to supply sugar for blood, so that brain gets required fuel during the exercise. And that's why, because of the low blood sugar, when the blood sugar is low, the athletes tend to perform poorly. So this is one of the reasons why athletes bonk and they perform poorly when they are low on the carbohydrates.
So
yes.
So we have more slides.
Yeah, I will wrap up, in 5 minutes. Okay. Okay, so now again, I'm just coming and wrapping up. Again, there are a few more questions. You can say that there are, misconceptions, and too many of today's athletes believe that carbohydrates are bad. So this is, the expert I have taken from one of the ACSM conference, and some questions were asked to the experts there. The first is, does sugar cause diabetes? Everybody will say yes, right? But actually, no. The problem is less about sugar. The problem is more about the lack of exercise. So we cannot say that sugar causes diabetes. The problem is more about your exercise. The most fit people can enjoy a little sugar without a fear of health issues. And I have personal experiences. Because the time is very short, I will not go to that. But I have reduced my HbA1c level from 6.4 to 5.3 in just 4 months, without compromising on the sugar, without compromising the food, and just with my regular fitness training. So I will not go in detail because the time is less. Let's go to the next. Here is, okay. Are potatoes an easy to digest sports fuel? Yes. There are many studies which have shown that if you take, the potatoes, vis-a-vis those, the commercial gels, they are also equally good to supply necessary fuel during the exercise. I think I missed this. Can natural foods replace ultra-processed commercial soft drinks and foods? Yes. The standard foods can be fine alternative to the commercial sports fuels, because the natural foods offer far more than just the fuel. They contain abundant bioactive compounds that have a positive impact on health and performance. So of course, they are a very good option to replace the commercial foods. Is fruit juice a helpful choice for athletes? Yes, indeed. The fruit juice can be an excellent source of carbohydrate to fuel the muscles, such as the colorful juices such as a grape, cherry, blueberry, orange. They also offer anti-inflammatory phytochemicals which are called polyphenols, and they are very important. Now, this again, the question comes for many athletes who especially run the long distances, that does carbohydrate intake trigger intestinal distress for ultra marathon runners? Not always. Not always, so, basically the GI complaints, if we see some of the studies, the GI complaints were not linked to the carbohydrate intake or to the gut damage. In fact, the higher carbohydrate intake potentially reduce the risk of gut injuries. So there are many other factors which may trigger this distress, but not actually the carbohydrate. Does it matter if we consume a slow digesting or fast digesting carbohydrate? And I think there are 2 more slides after this, Nandini. So likely not. The slow digesting carb provided more stable and consistent fuel source that maintained blood glucose concentration during the long run. So hence, endurance athletes want to experiment with variety of beverages to determine which ones settle best and help them to feel good during the intended exercise. So a slow digesting carb can help maintain stable blood glucose levels without consuming the fuel during the run. On the other hand, the fast digesting carbs needs carbohydrate supplementation throughout your exercise, training or a competition. Now, these are some of the, like for your screenshots, you can take, suppose if you want to know how much carbs you have, in your food. So what I have listed here is a 25 grams, it is equivalent to 25 grams of carbohydrate. So you can just take, like if you want to see from the grains, how you get 25 grams. This is from, some other sources like beans and starchy vegetables, from the sports drinks. So all these are equivalent to the 25 grams of carbohydrates. You can just take a screenshots for here. And some of other sources, the juices and mixed dishes. And with this, I would like to conclude my lecture here. Thank you so much, everyone, for giving me a patience hearing. And thank you so much, PEFI, again, for giving me this opportunity to deliver my talk. Now over to the moderator for further proceedings.
Thank you so much, sir. It was really a very informative session, and we have a lot of questions. But I guess after completing, this presentation, a lot of people must have, get the answer of their questions. Still, I will take a few questions. One is related with the diabetic kind of, player. It is when carbohydrates are calculated in grams and equal to weight to an athlete who are in high intensity program, what type of GI load will you recommend for an insulin dependent high intensity training program?
Okay. The recommendations which I have given in today's lecture, this is for the people like without any clinical issues. So if athlete is having a diabetes, then of course a separate program has to be planned for him, and we cannot say just in one line that he should take that much carb or not. For athlete with diabetic conditions, even I have experienced. I have done 2 of my research projects on a people with diabetes, with type A and type 2 diabetes both. And when we give them the exercise programs, we always have to make sure that before the exercise, we have to see, their insulin levels. If the insulin levels are less, we have to give them, high GI food immediately so that their blood sugar does not drop too low during the exercise. So we have to take these precautions by looking at the insulin levels before the exercise and, immediately also after the exercise. So accordingly, we have to supply them either the high GI food, or we have to wait. If the sugar levels are high, in the blood, we have to wait for, we don't allow them to exercise, quickly. So we have to wait for that sugar level to come to the, at manageable level. So high GI food will be recommended if the sugar level falls, too low for the diabetic athletes.
Yeah, thank you, sir. I think the person who have asked this question must have received the answer. Sir, as we all know that carbohydrate is a macronutrient and a component of our balanced diet. But what if someone consumes more carbohydrates? Does it have any side effects?
You see, again, it's very important question, and all these questions cannot be answered in isolations. I mean, if you take more carbohydrate, means then you are compromising on the requirement of calories from the protein and the fat. So you cannot exceed up to 80%. If you go up to 80% of your calories, then you have left only 20% to consume from the protein and fat, which is too less. So of course, certainly when you take too much calories from the carbohydrate, then you will not be left that much calorie from the protein and fats. And even if still you want to take, I want to take that much protein required for a day. So then you will be like, going into the range where you will increase your weight. because then you'll be exceeding the calories required for the day. So you should not be taking too much carbohydrate. It's again, so there is a recommended range which like I have shown to you. So we should keep in that range. So there can be always plus minus 1 or 2, in that, but not beyond that.
Yes, and one question is related to the PE teachers. They're asking for themselves. So I want to put this question, as a lot of, after leaving the game, when we come into the coaching and teaching, we just leave that specific diet plan and, continue the normal, food habits. So one of the person has asked which type of nutrition is required for PE teachers. So how they can maintain their physical fitness after leaving the, game and training sessions 2 times. When they were playing.
Okay, yeah, this is more or less related to the lifestyle of a person, and we have seen that, and that's why I have said in some of my lectures, in the past also, that I have seen when we see so many coaches that they are overweight and they are fat. Why it happens? So you are living a very active lifestyle during your your sporting career, and then suddenly you become overweight. So it is not because of the nutrition alone, it is because more of the lack of activity and exercise. So the nutrition, of course, you have to take the calories, like if you are an adult, we all know that you need around 2000 to 200 calories every day. So if you exceed those calories, then you will certainly be overweight because you are not active. So it again, what nutrition you take depends upon your lifestyle. If you are an active, person, then you need to take more calories. If you are a less active person, then you have to restrict your calories, and make sure that you don't overeat. So overeating is only when you don't exercise. But again, for me personally, I always say that overeating is not a problem. The problem is the lack of activity. So you should be fit. Fitness is more important. And fitness, weight is not a criteria to be fit. Mark my words, many people say that even like I look very lean and thin. So many people in my colleagues, they say, oh, why do you exercise? You are fit. So just because you are lean, you are not fit. So many obese people, they are fitter than people who are lean. There's so many lean people who are normal weight. They suffer from heart attack. They suffer from the angio. Even I have seen, I'm very sad to say right now that in last 1 year, I have seen some of my past students at the age of 35, they are PE teachers, they suffered heart attack, they die from the heart attack. And most of you know that. And why it happened? It is happened because we are not living the active lifestyle. Of course, there can be some other reasons also, it's not necessary, but this is one of the reasons. So fitness is not about the weight. Fitness is, being fit is about, how much you are active. So that's where should all the PE teachers, we have to still maintain our focus that we should remain fit, we should be active. Even if you are active, then only you can solve this problem. And of course, the nutrition will, is again important. If you are active, you have to take a proper balanced diet, which we all know that around 60% of carbs, 20-25% of proteins, and remaining 10% from the, the fat. So I think our approach should be like this.
Thank you, sir. One last question I would like to ask you. After an injury, what kind of diet or nutrition we should provide for a faster recovery?
Again, this question is out of my my area. Basically, I am not done, but again, it depends upon, suppose if your are broken, your muscles are damaged, then you need a more like protein diet to promote synthesis of the muscle tendons or the muscle fibers. So it depends upon the type of the injury, and again, because when you are injured, you have to make sure that you don't, go high on the calories, because now you are in the resting phase. And many times in the injured athletes, when we see they come back, they are overweight because they still continue the same diet. So whether we take more carbs, of course, carbs are not there, but the more important is, the proteins, depending upon the injury of your side, whether it's your muscle tendons are injured or muscle fibers are injured, or you have, just a soft tissue injuries or something else. And one thing I want to add here, before you conclude, when you ask me about the PE teachers, what should, so again, raising this question is very important. Why I'm saying is that we always talk, when we talk about the schools, universities and colleges, we always talk about that we want our students, to be fit, but we never talk about the teachers and the staff who work in these schools and colleges. Is active lifestyle is only for the students? What about the teachers? There are around 30%, of the population is consists of teachers and the staff. Why we don't have a program for them? Why we always talk about that, okay, this is a program for our school kids. What about the program for the school teachers? Why can't we find, when we say we have a PE class or 1 hour PE class for the students, why can't we have some time dedicated to all the people in the school for physical activity in their school curriculum time? I think this is something missing, not only in India, everywhere in the world. So I think we have to start thinking on, on that side also.
Yeah, thank you so much, sir, for the knowledgeable session and answering the questions. On behalf of PEFI, I would like to thank you.
Thank you so much, Nandi. Thank you so much, Nandini ji, and welcome, Dr. Sandhya Tiwari, ma'am. I'm so happy
Has joined us.
And nice to see you, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Wonderful lecture, Rakesh, and very informative. And I hope the participants would have gained lot. One comment only, what I would like to suggest here is, as far as when the medical issues come, and let's leave those treatment part, clinical aspects to the doctors.
Yes.
As for the dietary prescription, as for the diabetic patients, the diet prescription was given. So we need to be specialists who are, working on that area. So medical field, we need not intervene. What I would like to suggest is we can work in collaboration. Always when you're dealing with clinical populations, हमेशा एक collaborative effort जो है, जो physician होता है, fitness expert है, एक साथ काम करते हैं, so then you can definitely prescribe a very good exercise program.
Yes, ma'am. Very well said, ma'am. Perfect.
Not in isolation.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you for your comments.
Very, very good informative lecture. Very good.
Welcome, ma'am. All the attendees. Our second speaker has come up, and that's Dr. Sandhya Tiwari. She is presently working as Associate Professor in Indira Gandhi National Institute of Physical Education and Sports Sciences, University of Delhi. She has authored a book on exercise physiology for college students and a book on physical education for class 11th and 12th standard, CBSE board. And she has also, promoted 6 scholars of PhD and 6 being supervised. Through research at PhD level, developed health-related fitness norms from age 6 to age 25. She has also developed functional fitness norms for male senior citizens aged 60 to 20 years old. We welcome you, ma'am. Thank you so much for taking out time to be here with us. And today, Dr. Sandhya Tiwari is going to take the topic, physiological factors affecting sports performance. Now the screen is yours, ma'am. You can start sharing your PPT.
Okay, thank you so much, Nandini, and I thank PEFI, Dr. Piyush Jain, and all the people who are running this organization and this, upgradation course for the PE teachers. Once again, and now I'll share my screen.
While Dr. Sandhya Tiwari is sharing her screen, I want all the participants to please make sure their internet connection is stable, as a lot of participants are writing in the comment section that we are not audible, the voice is breaking, and the presentation is not visible to them. We have checked our connection; it's totally error-free and stable. Please, participants, check your internet connection, and you can refresh and rejoin.
So
yes, ma'am, it's clear.
Can you help me enlarge my screen like it's?
Ma'am, you just go to the slideshow.
Yeah, I need to do that. This is what is.
Slideshow next.
Yeah.
You can play the slideshow or you can double.
Yeah, done it.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So
go ahead.
Today, the topic what I'm going to speak is physiological factors affecting sports performance. So before I start with my lecture, I was seeing in the chat box, थोड़ा हिंदी का भी demand आ रहा था, बार-बार pop up हो रहा था. So I'll try to have a combination. I'll be trying to be bilingual wherever. But one thing I would like to suggest to teachers, when we're talking of physiology, the terms, whatever it is, it should stay in English, because it's very difficult when you convert the whole thing into Hindi. You can't explain it in a better way. So I'll try my level best. So when you're talking of physiological factors affecting sports performance, here there are many interpretations, like you can say that what are the factors which can deter a sports performance or athletic performance, or what are the factors which can facilitate the sports performance. Okay, so now I'll go to the next slide. So now you see, over the centuries, since long, a lot of research is being done, on the elite athletes. Just they want to study that what was the physiological factors that help them to reach that extraordinary level, because they wanted to investigate. They are still, the research is still going on day by day. Every day you'll find changes in the research report. They want to study that what are all those physiological factors, कौन सी वो physiological factors रही होंगी जो उनको हेल्प करती हैं स्पोर्ट्स एक्सेलेंस में, कैसे वो एलीट लेवल पे पहुंचे. ओके, एंड अगर आप देखें, इफ यू सी द एलीट एथलेटिक जो परफॉर्मेंस है, एक्सेलेंस जो है, just one factor is not responsible for sports excellence. It's a culmination of lot many factors. बहुत सारी factors जो हैं, बहुत सारी aspects individual की वो उसको affect करती हैं, चाहे हम कहें physiological, psychological, biomechanical, sociological, lot many factors. And genetic predisposition is also very important factor. All they work in a combined way, and which helps the athlete to achieve excellence in his respective field. So how these different systems जो हैं वो एक दूसरे के साथ हेल्प करते हुए कोऑर्डिनेटेड तरीके से काम करती हैं और फाइनली एनर्जी देती हैं बॉडी को, सो दैट एनर्जी से जो है इंडिविजुअल एथलीट जो है वो अपना परफॉर्मेंस दे पाता है. Then, as I said, the point is repeating. So the sociological motivational factor, if you find you'll have a athlete who's in in a very good form, but every day is not his day. A day comes, on the day of the competition, he's upset, he doesn't perform well. Why is it so? The coach may think that बहुत अच्छी ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम दी, सारा न्यूट्रिशनल एस्पेक्ट जो है अच्छे से फॉलो करा गया था, सारी चीजें अच्छी से देखी गई थी, क्या रीजन था कि when he went to the field he did not perform well. So that's why you find, if you see the athletes abroad, they have a team of expert. They have a team of expert. Like today is the era of super specialization. आज का जो era है वो super specialization का है. So what happens is, like if you see in the case of Sajay Bupka, he had a team of 9 experts. He had a sports psychologist, he had a masseur, fitness trainer, sports physiologist था. तो जो हर कोई अपने तरीके से उस एथलीट को स्टडी कर रहा था. That's why how he reached that elite level. But sorry to say, in our country, everybody all in one, जो whatever who is also managing the athlete, they only try to prescribe the diet, या जो fitness program जो देते हैं, scheduling जो है, everything is put together. So that is not practically feasible. So by your coaching and why you want to see the improvement in the performance, why the performance जो है वो improve नहीं हो पा रहा है, क्या कारण है, so we need to sit for that, we need to have experts. So ऐसे जो है psychological factors भी होती हैं. So in that case, the athlete who did not perform well on a particular day, it is the duty of the coach or this, he needs a psychologist to see that what went wrong. Okay, so that's the reason why we can't say that only physical or physiological factors जो है या sports training जो अच्छे से दे दिया है और athlete जो है वो excellence को gain कर पाएगा. So that means when you know all these factors, when you study very well and you're focusing on the athlete, then only we are able to decide that who can and who cannot become a champion. Who can, okay. And then genetic जो predisposition है, we do agree, जो certain physiological जो parameters होती हैं, वो you're born with certain physiological parameters, you get it from your parents. Earlier days it was said that sprinters are born and not made. So the latest one is, if you want to be an elite athlete, you need to choose your parents. So they say, in the sense that if both your parents are elite athletes, there are strong chances that you are going to excel in sport. So genetic potential is there, but Again, just banking on genetic potential. Yes, I was born to athletic parent. They both were elite athlete. Let me not train. Let me not follow all those other scientific aspects of gaining success in sports. That will not work. So for that, you'll see the athlete has to undergo vigorous training. If you see the Olympic athlete, वो 8 से 12 साल का vigorous training देते हैं, तब वो उस podium पे पहुंच पाते हैं. So it's a culmination, it's a combination of all these factors. Before I start with these are all the factors which is affecting the sports performance, I've just made a table. ऐसी बहुत सारी हैं फिजियोलॉजिकल फैक्टर्स जो कि स्पोर्ट्स परफॉर्मेंस को असेस मतलब अफेक्ट करती हैं, इन्फ्लुएंस करती हैं, डिटर करती हैं. But I have taken few of the important things what I felt, which was because in a 1 hour time, it's we can't explain everything together. Some of the aspect like nutrition, many speakers already speaking, Dr. Rakesh has already touched upon that. I'll not be focusing on that. Now you see the few physiological जो parameters हैं, ये maximal oxygen consumption, VO2 max, you all would have known what is VO2 max, lactate threshold, running economy. These three, the research shows that these three parameters, they work together, they integrate together. ये तीनों एक साथ काम करती हैं और वो एक endurance athlete को बहुत मदद देती हैं to excel in their particular event athlete. Okay, because everything in endurance performance, you see, everything is related to oxygen consumption. So that I'll be talking later on. फिर increase capillarization, capillaries अगर बढ़ जाती हैं एक surrounding the tissue, उससे क्या फायदा होता है, उससे कैसे ऑक्सीजन ज्यादा मिलता है, ऑक्सीजन ज्यादा मिलेगा मसल सेल को, so what will happen, एरोबिक मेटाबॉलिज्म ज्यादा अच्छी हो जाएगी, तो एरोबिक एनर्जी प्रोडक्शन अच्छी होगी, एरोबिक एनर्जी अच्छी प्रोडक्शन होगी तो more ATP being liberated, and then you can find finally the performance because of greater oxygen availability, endurance performance अच्छा हो जाता है. फिर muscle fiber composition, आप सबने सुना होगा, you would have learned that there are different type of muscle fiber, slow twitch fiber, fast twitch fiber. Fast twitch fiber की फिर दूसरी classification होती है. So that also I'll be talking about. The nutritional ergogenics would not be touching because he has already covered. Then enhance cardiorespiratory functions. I've combined cardiovascular and respiratory parameters in one aspect. So इसमें what are the different cardiovascular parameters, respiratory parameters, वो कौन कौन सी हैं जो कि एथलीट को परफॉर्मेंस में जो है एक्सेल करने में मदद करती हैं, लाइक कार्डिक आउटपुट, हार्ट रेट का क्या रोल होता है ड्यूरिंग एक्सरसाइज, स्ट्रोक वॉल्यूम कैसे बढ़ जाता है, और स्ट्रोक वॉल्यूम ट्रेन्ड एथलीट में ज्यादा पाया जाता है, उससे उनको क्या फायदा होता है. फिर इंक्रीज आर्टेरियोवीनस ऑक्सीजन डिफरेंस है कि जो एक्टिव जो ट्रेन मसल्स होती हैं, ट्रेन्ड एथलीट की अगर मसल्स हैं उनकी कैपेसिटी होती है कि वो ज्यादा ऑक्सीजन को एक्सट्रैक्ट कर पाती हैं, कैसे, हाउ इट इज हैपनिंग, कार्डिक हाइपरट्रॉफी. तो ये सारी जो points which is being shown here, it's all as a result of research reports which are being done on the athletes. That means anybody who has these can definitely expect an improvement in his performance. These are the physiological factors. ऐसी lung volumes है, what vital capacity has to do, why lung volume is larger in the trained athlete when compared to the untrained athlete, what relationship with the performance. Then energy reserves है, what energy reserve, why you need to have the energy reserves as carbohydrate, fat, protein, how it is helping in, what are the bioenergetics, aerobic system, anaerobic system, वो कैसे energy liberation में काम करती हैं. Fatigue, what is fatigue, how fatigue is caused, how fatigue can affect athletic performance. Then what is glycogen sparing effect, what will happen if glycogen is being spared, and more dependency on the fat oxidation, how it can delay the onset of fatigue, and it can help the athlete, especially in the aerobic type of event. Then the oxidative capacity of the muscle, it is maximal oxygen consumption, और ये जो oxidative capacity of muscle जो है ये थोड़ा different है. Maximal oxygen consumption जो है वो body की oxygen consumption को indicate करता है, and oxidative capacity जो है जिसे हम respiratory capacity of muscle भी बोलते हैं, this is concerning the oxygen consumption by the muscle. फिर optimal body composition, So body composition, we all know that it is a chemical composition of the body which comprises of fat, weight, body fat percentage, weight of the bone, water content, all in all. And then we all know that every sport demands its own playing weight, and depending on the energy expenditure जो है, the dietary regimen is also followed so that optimal body composition is maintained. And why in the case of the female athletes, there's a lot of problem as far as you'll find, especially in the appearance sport, who are participating. Appearance sport are those sport like gymnastics, ballet, skiing, and nowadays distance running also is considered in that जो फीमेल एथलीट्स जो होती हैं उसमें अगर बॉडी फैट परसेंटेज कम हो जाता है, क्या उनको प्रॉब्लम्स हो जाती हैं, क्योंकि कहते हैं अगर वो नॉर्मल पीरियोडिक साइकिल जो है फीमेल में होना चाहिए तो कम से कम 19 to 22% बॉडी फैट उनमें होनी चाहिए। एक डिस्टेंस रनर में 6% बॉडी फैट पाया गया था, और देखा गया दैट वाज till that time the coach or the family were not that much concerned, but when they saw her performance was not improving, and what was the reason? So when they checked out, they found her body fat percentage 6 was very low. Or further investigation kari gayi, so it was found that she had missed her periodic cycle for 6 to 7 months, which is not a good sign. So, and then finally, then lot of research were being done, it gathered, and female athletes पे करने लगे तो पता लगा concept जो eating disorder का आया, फिर क्या जो anorexia और bulimia nervosa, we all know what is anorexia nervosa and bulimia nervosa, then how it can lead to amenorrhea या osteoporosis, then the concept of female athlete triad has come. So there every time the nutritional aspect, that means body composition has been given importance there, and how when the optimal there is no the body composition is not maintained at the optimal level based on the energy expenditure, how the performance can deter. Genetic predisposition I've already told. Then the metabolic adaptation can also be called as subcellular changes following training program. So that means these metabolic adaptations can either take place post anaerobic training or aerobic training. And in this, it's normally seen that what happens following a training program, if it is endurance-based training program, the mitochondria's number and size, it increases. So now what it has to do with the performance, that will do it for the myoglobin content, which is found in the muscle cell, which carries oxygen from the cell membrane and dumps into the mitochondria, how it has the connection with the endurance performance. Then comes muscle hypertrophy, and cardiac hypertrophy is related to the heart, increase in the size of the heart, and muscle hypertrophy is the increase in the cross section of the heart. And then the training regimen. What are the components of the training modules one needs to consider as far as the intensity, frequency, duration is concerned. Why, when you're planning a training program, individual differences को आपको रखना चाहिए, क्योंकि training program cannot be one for everybody. You need to cater to the needs of each and every individual athlete. So individual differences have to be kept in mind. And limits of excessive training. What happens normally, you find at times in the quest for gold, at times the athlete or the coach is under too much of pressure. He pushes the athlete so hard that it finally results in overtraining syndrome. And finally क्या होता है, पूरे साल आपने अच्छे से ट्रेनिंग करा, सारी साइंटिफिक प्रिंसिपल्स फॉलो करी और परफॉर्मेंस इंप्रूव नहीं हुआ. So what will happen? You are actually instead of further facilitating the performance in the athlete, you are, instead of seeing a positive growth in the performance of the athlete, you're seeing that the performance is tending to come down. So this was in a nutshell. So now I come for the maximal oxygen uptake. So if you see, normally I'm not able to put a dot. V के ऊपर हमेशा एक डॉट आता है, that means per minute basis कहते हैं उसको. So what is maximal oxygen consumption? It is the ability of the individual body system to take in oxygen from the air, how much ever you can. And here it is the lot many factors determine the capacity, the ability of the coordination ability of the heart and your lungs, how they are able to take in the oxygen, how the deoxygenated blood is converted to oxygenated blood, and how it is finally transported to the tissue and active tissue during exercise program. So in other words, we can say that how oxygen is taken in from the environment, maximum volume of oxygen consumed by the body, that's called the oxygen consumption. And this oxygen VO2 max जो है, it has been considered as a measure of functional fitness. एंड एट टाइम यू सी, अगर आप देखेंगे बहुत सारी फील्ड टेस्ट हैं, 1 माइल रॉक वॉक टेस्ट हो गया, 12 मिनट रन वॉक टेस्ट कूपर का है, 1.5 माइल रन टेस्ट है. आफ्टर एवरी टेस्ट यू विल फाइंड देयर इज अ रिग्रेशन इक्वेशन व्हिच इज प्रेडिक्टिंग द VO2 max. Okay, and you will find, so that means VO2 max जो है वो it is a predictor of cardiorespiratory fitness. So I hope you all know what does cardiorespiratory fitness mean. It is the ability of your heart and lungs to transport, to deliver oxygen to the active tissue which is working for long duration of time, you know, and without getting tired very soon. So that is called cardiorespiratory fitness. And when you see the average values, these all are research based. इलीट मैन जो है, इंटरनेशनल स्टैंडर्ड्स के जो डिस्टेंस रनर्स हैं, उनमें ये पाया गया कि जो VO2 मैक्स है वो 75 to 85 मिलीलीटर ऑफ ऑक्सीजन कंज्यूम्ड पर किलोग्राम ऑफ बॉडी वेट पर मिनट. ये रिलेटिव वैल्यू इन रिलेशन टू द बॉडी वेट. ऐसे विमेन में देखा गया है कि 60 to 75%, 75 मिलीलीटर ऑफ ऑक्सीजन कंज्यूम्ड पर किलोग्राम ऑफ बॉडी वेट पर मिनट. और जो सिडेंटरी एडल्ट्स में देखा गया 40 to 50. यू विल फाइंड जो VO2 मैक्स है 10% करीब विमेन का कम होता है when compared to the their her male counterpart. There are many factors which is owing to the lower VO2 max in the women. एक तो हीमोग्लोबिन कंसंट्रेशन का कम होना, greater body composition fat जो है. So and then on an average, if both are athletes, you will find the women is less well conditioned when compared to her male counterpart. And then the other thing is you will find because of the smaller body constitution, तो जो organs की size भी छोटी होती है, so that definitely will find कि जो stroke volume है. So I hope you all know the basic fundamentals of जो physiology में use होता है. Stroke volume जो है, it is the maximum volume of जो blood which can be pumped every stroke, every beat. So stroke volume is lesser in the case of women. So that also probably owes to a lower VO2 max when compared to her male counterpart. Then improvement, genetically you are, there is genetic predisposition as well, but just not to sit down that yes, I have got a good VO2 max, I can perform on any day. No, as I said before in the second slide, you need to undergo rigorous training program. So you get what you do. So your improvement in VO2 max can be further facilitated by working on your training modules. That is the duty of a coach. आप accordingly इसको manage करेंगे तो it can be enhanced. So अब जो रनर का जो परफॉर्मेंस है, it may be जो ये क्या कहते हैं, how it can be hindered, that when he is doing it, what are those factors which can hinder his performance as far as the oxygen availability is concerned. One may be a low oxygen uptake. He or she is not able to take in the oxygen during the program exercise. And second is there is an upper upper limit for oxygen uptake. That means when you're taking maximal oxygen, so you make the athlete work to exhaustion. So एक limit है, तो he is not able to peak that, he is not able to reach that. So there again oxygen availability is reduced. Then increase oxygen requirement. There is an because of intensive exercise, metabolic rate जो है वो बढ़ जाता है. But what happens is oxygen की जो requirement है आप fulfill नहीं कर पा रहे हैं. So this can deter. Okay, then now let's see what are the key components and systems that are determinants. That means what determine what is helping or aiding. Maximal cardiac output. So we all know that maximal cardiac output, as I said before, it is the volume of blood which is pumped by the heart in 1 minute. And cardiac output जो है heart rate और stroke volume का product है. So अब ये cardiac output, how it is increased? It is because the stroke volume at maximum level of exercise is increasing, which can lead to increased cardiac output. And increased cardiac output would mean increased blood flow, And blood flow का बढ़ने का मतलब more oxygen being carried. So the greater the oxygen transported, and then when it reaches the cellular level, greater oxygen uptake. And then this is basic fundamental, physiological mechanism which you will find this is repeating every time, and they all are interrelated, interdependent, which which is helping in enhancement of the performance. So stroke volume का increase होना, फिर delivery of oxygen by the cardiorespiratory system to contracting muscles. So as I said, the mechanism कैसे पहुंचता है, cardiac output बढ़ जाता है, oxygen blood flow बढ़ जाता है to active tissues, and then they increase oxygen uptake by the active tissues. Then hemoglobin concentration of the blood. So hemoglobin is a carrier of oxygen. तो ये बहुत ज़्यादा significant नहीं है, but हाँ उस केस में है जहाँ जैसे हम फीमेल एथलेटिक एनीमिया देखते हैं, फीमेल में एनीमिया के चांसेस ज़्यादा होते हैं. So reasons can be many, because they're losing periodical, जो menstrual flow में they're losing the blood, and in case already she's anemic, there are chances more. So you need to work on the diet. The dietitian or the sports nutritionist always can emphasize जब वो डाइट प्लान करते हैं that iron, folic acid वगैरह उनका कितना दिया जा रहा है जिससे उनका हीमोग्लोबिन बढ़ सकता है. And so that वो उसकी performance, this should not be one of the factor that in spite of all those training inputs, her performance is not increasing. Then density of capillaries in muscle fiber. That means capillaries, you'll find जो major blood vessels हैं, arteries they branch into arterioles, and then at the cellular level you'll find capillaries. फिर वहाँ से waste product जाता है, venules ले जाती हैं, veins, and then to the right side of the heart. तो अब capillaries जो है जितनी ज़्यादा densely populated होगी surrounding that muscle fiber, that much perfusion will be there, उतनी जो है blood वहाँ पहुँचेगा, and then greater the blood flow reaching there, greater oxygen extraction. So again, that is a very important factor. Then quantity of the motor units being recruited, slow twitch fiber and the fast twitch fiber, how they have been fired or activated. It depends on the kind of activity what you're doing. So these contractions, whether it's an intensive contraction in case of fast twitch fiber, yeah, jo slow twitch fiber, it goes for a slow contraction but can contract for prolonged duration of time. So this also helps in the raising of the metabolic activity of the muscle, which can increase the oxidative capacity of the muscle. And finally, it can also help in the maximal oxygen uptake. And then the capacity of the muscle engaged to consume oxygen. And this is also referred to as oxidative capacity of the muscle or the respiratory capacity. Uski agar capacity अच्छी नहीं होगी, so there's no use that the cardiac output has increased, stroke volume बढ़ गया है, पर वहाँ पे extraction level जो है वो कम हो रहा है. So all these factors enhances the maximal oxygen uptake. In the when you're talking of distance running performance, so most of the literature they have seen these three factors they interact. As I said before, VO2 max, lactate threshold. Lactate threshold is also called as a lactate inflection point or running economy. In the case of cycling या दूसरे स्पोर्ट में cycling efficiency भी कहते हैं, movement economy भी कहते हैं. So ये तीनों जो है इंटीग्रेट करके एक दूसरे से कोऑर्डिनेटेड तरीके से जब काम करती है, इनका जो आपस का जो इंटरेक्शन होता है वो डेफिनेटली एक एंडोरेंस एथलीट को हेल्प जरूर करता है. Now, what is lactate threshold? Lactate threshold is that point of exhaustive exercise where the blood lactate accumulation, reaches the maximum level, and it is increasing drastically. It increases with increasing exercise intensity. So, and why you want to assess or why one should determine the lactate threshold? What it helps in ये endurance capacity, endurance performance, आपकी potential कितनी है, that is assess करने में help करता है. And then one can see that how well chronic adaptation कितना हुआ, that means how कितना training के दौरान कितनी improvement आई है, how is able to tolerate that levels of lactate accumulation. जैसे trained athlete में देखा गया कि जो trained और sedentary को अगर हम देखें, जो trained athlete है उनकी because they train what they're going to face on the day of the competition, so the training is so vigorous, so they reach a stage, it's so exhaustive that a stage comes when the lactic acid accumulation is at the maximum level where the fatigue sets in, जो हम बोलते हैं, they still continue to work There are elite athletes who are training more number of days. They work twice a morning and evening, or when they're too tired, when they reach the fatigue stage, they go for one more repetition, and then they go and take a dip in the pool. So what happens? It's a physical push rather. So how they're able to do it? It is because of the training program. They are able to tolerate that level, and then it also helps in predicting the potential in the performance. हाँ कितना improvement हुआ है. So that's why जो lactate threshold है, it is considered as a valid performance indicator, because there's a strong relationship between lactate threshold, that means ability to tolerate that lactic acid level, and you're continuing that activity for longer duration of time. And now you'll find there's a variation देखा गया in endurance performance in those athletes इनका VO2 max similar है. Okay, so you'll find that जो highly trained जो athletes होते हैं, they are able to perform with at very high percentage of VO2 max, but lactate accumulation is less, because as I said before, हो सकता है running efficiency अच्छी, running जो economy है वो अच्छी हो, या various other factors, mechanics, so whatever it is, it would have helped in, and also the chronic adaptation is one of the factor. So they are determined mainly by the oxidative capacity of the muscle also, because oxygen supply is continuously there. So it's the research has shown that an increase of 2 times in the oxidative capacity of the skeletal muscle has been reported in trained skeletal muscles of human who are training for 20 to 120 minutes at a required intensity. So this doubling of the oxidative capacity has been linked to the high lactate threshold, ability to withstand that, and it's seen in the elite level. One cannot expect in a person or athlete who is a beginner or a novice. Then comes running economy. So जो running economy है, it is typically defined as the energy demand for a given velocity of sustaining the running, and you'll find it is a relationship between the running speed and the oxygen consumption. Running speed, that means it can vary in individual. That means like you have hypothetically you have two runners with the same VO2 max value, and you make them run at a certain velocity, you will find that the performance jiska acha hoga, so uska jo, because the more trained athlete, you will find he's using less energy, and at that particular velocity, and we can say that that person has got a better running economy. So that's why we say that research has shown that कि जो running economy है is a better predictor of race performance in elite runners than the VO2 max. But again, one thing I would like to emphasize: no research is wrong. It depends if that on what population and on what type of athletes it was done. So VO2 max also need not be neglected. So that's why here to conclude, we can say that who the athletes who have गुड रनिंग इकोनॉमी या जो एफिशिएंसी अच्छी होती है, सो दे कंज्यूम लेस ऑक्सीजन. तो माइलेज की बात है, सो व्हाई टू टेक इन एक्स्ट्रा. सो एक पर्टिकुलर पेस पे आपको दौड़ना है, तो आप जो है कम ऑक्सीजन यूज करें, सो दैट इज मच मोर बेटर. देन फाइबर टाइप एंड एथलेटिक सक्सेस. So what is fiber type and athletic success here? Focus upon, we all know that the basically there are mainly two type, the type 1, type 2 slow twitch fiber, and the white muscle fast twitch fiber. तो अलग अलग नाम उनके दिए गए हैं, type 1, type 2, okay, and oxidative and glycolytic fibers, lot many names have been given. White has been given that क्योंकि इनका जो slow twitch fiber है, क्या कहते हैं, it's basically designed, or you inherit certain percentage of slow twitch fiber and the fast twitch fiber right from birth. So it is it changes very little from childhood to middle age. And then जो फाइबर टाइप है उसकी जो कंपोजिशन है वो उसकी ऑक्सीडेटिव कैपेसिटी को डिटरमिन करता है. तो जो स्लो ट्विच फाइबर है वो उसका क्या काम होता है, इट टेक्स टाइम टू स्टार्ट कॉन्ट्रैक्शन, बट बेनिफिट क्या है, इट कैन कीप ऑन कॉन्ट्रैक्टिंग फॉर लॉन्गर ड्यूरेशन ऑफ टाइम. अब इसमें क्या है, इट इज रेड इन कलर, इट हैज लॉट ऑफ माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया. एंड वन थिंग आई वुड लाइक टू से, that when you're talking of aerobic metabolism and anaerobic metabolism, all the aerobic metabolism takes place in the cell's mitochondria, and all the anaerobic metabolism takes place in the cell's cytoplasm. So mitochondria का जो है ज्यादा होना का मतलब है कि ज्यादा ऑक्सीजन ऑक्सीडेटिव प्रोडक्शन होगा. एंड देन यू विल फाइंड सराउंडिंग्स दिस एसटीएफ बहुत डेंसली पॉपुलेटेड कैपिलरीज होती हैं. तो जैसे मैंने पहले भी कहा कि मोर नंबर ऑफ कैपिलरीज सराउंडिंग डेंसली पॉपुलेटिंग दैट पर्टिकुलर फाइबर वुड मीन ग्रेटर ऑक्सीजन अवेलेबिलिटी, क्योंकि मोर ब्लड कमिंग इन. सो ये जो है इससे ज्यादा ऑक्सीजन जो है वो मिलता है एक्टिव टिश्यूज को. एंड that's the reason why that these slow twitch fiber, they are designed for excelling in the endurance performance. So we can say that the slow twitch fiber, an individual with greater percentage of slow twitch fiber and found out through muscle biopsy, which is a invasive technique, very expensive. If they are found out, so he or she can be made to train in a sport which is predominated by the aerobic endurance. So now the fast twitch fiber, इनका जो मेन काम होता है कि it intensely starts very speed, powerful होता है. It can contract very fast, very intensively, but it gets tired very soon. It's so but इसका एक जो benefit है कि जो it's more powerful. That means when force production की बात आती है, FTF plays a very important role. So that's why athletes who have greater percentage of fast twitch fiber, I did not tell you वो कौन से sport में excel करते हैं. Sprinters you can find, the athletes from the resistance sport, power athletes, they can excel there. So these FTF जो है, तो इन क्या the greater supply of myosin ATPase. Myosin ATPase एंजाइम होता है जो कि ATP को ब्रेक डाउन करता है. सो ये जितना ज्यादा अच्छा होगा myosin ATPase की सप्लाई होगी, उतनी जो है रैपिड प्रोडक्शन होगी, ATP की ब्रेक डाउन होगी और एनर्जी रिलीज होगा. और देन यू ऑल्सो फाइंड क्रिएटिन फॉस्फेट, या हम फॉस्फोक्रिएटिन जो कहते हैं वो भी ज्यादा इसमें होता है. सो व्हाट विल हैपन, जो क्रिएटिन फॉस्फेट है, अगर आप रिकलेक्ट करें, ये वो केमिकल कंपाउंड है जो कि एटीपी की रीसिंथेसिस में हेल्प करता है. सो ये जो है इट्स अ वेरी एडवांटेजेस पोजीशन, जो इंस्टेंट एनर्जी मिलनी है. सो दीज केमिकल कंपाउंड्स हेल्प. सो ये एफटीएफ में पाया जाता है. एफटीएफ जो फास्ट ट्विच फाइबर है, ये दो तरह की है, फास्ट ट्विच एफटीए एंड एफटीएक्स. एंड जो फास्ट ट्विच एफटीए जो है, they are also basically found in जो middle distance runner है, those events which require a culmination, a merging, a coupling of aerobic and anaerobic energy production. So they are called red and type 2 red fibers, and इनमें they have greater quantities of myoglobin and mitochondria, but STF से कम होता है. And when compared to the FTX, ये ज्यादा होता है. And then जो ये FTX है, earlier it was called the FTB fibers, sorry. तो अब ये है कि why it was जैसे रिसर्च होता गया, so it was found that a new system of fiber typing से वो पता लगा कि they were identifying the number of myosin heavy chains जो है, फिलामेंट्स जो है वो कंटेन जो करते हैं. सो हैवी चेन जो मायोसिन जो है, दे कैन कंबाइन विद एक्टिव मोर स्ट्रांगली. जितना ज्यादा हैवी होगा, मोर स्ट्रांगली दे कैन कंबाइन. सो व्हाट विल हैपन, दिस कपलिंग जो होता है बिटवीन एक्सन एंड मायोसिन, वो जितने ज्यादा स्ट्रांगली होगा तो उतना ही जो है रेट ऑफ कॉन्ट्रैक्शन कैन बी मोर पावरफुल एंड फास्टर, रैपिड. So this helps in that. So your myosin ATPase as it is ज्यादा है, तो it helps in rapid forceful production. And जब FTX की बात करें, FTX जो है, they are the largest and the fastest contracting muscle when compared to the FTA. तो अब ये they can produce lot of power, and the power that fibers can generate is determined by the combination of contractile force and velocity. That means the amount of the quality of contraction is a combination of the force and velocity. That means any event which is dominated by power, so there FTX can help. Then when you're talking of FTA fibers, so the power what it can generate is around 5 times more than the slow twitch fiber. But जो FTX fiber है, जो कि हम we see in the sprint and intense, very short duration, high intensity activity, इनका they are more powerful, twice as FTA fibers. एंड इसमें एफटीएस का एक ये है कि दे हैव लेस लैक्टेट रिमूवल एंड बफरिंग कैपेसिटी। सो जो इसमें क्या है दैट फटीग रेसिस्टेंस इनमें कम होता है, सो द एथलीट विल गेट टायर्ड वेरी सून। सो जो है रैपिड फैटिग जो है वो सेट इन हो जाता है। सो हियर वी हैव सेड कि फाइबर टाइप जो है इफ यूर बॉर्न जेनेटिकली डिटरमाइंड है वो एक्सेल कर सकता है, बट सोली जो है इवन जस्ट one should not expect that he has a greater percentage of slow twitch fiber, he can be a world class endurance runner. That should not be the sole criteria of for determining athletic success. So as I said in the first or second slide, various other assessment also has to be done, like with various other fitness components hai, other training modules hai, various other factors as well. So we can say that fiber type composition jo hai alone is not the athletic predictor, but anyway knowing it is good because it can help in definitely it can help in the talent identification of athletes for various sports. The mitochondrial function. Mitochondria, as we all know, is called the powerhouse, which it's also called the furnace, where all the oxidative production takes place. So what will happen that if there is an increase in the number and size of the mitochondria, so what would it mean? कि जितना नंबर बढ़ेगा, जितना साइज बढ़ेगा माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया का, तो क्या होगा, उतना वो क्या दिखाता है कि ज्यादा एरोबिक एनर्जी प्रोडक्शन हो रहा, ऑक्सीडेशन जो प्रोसेस ऑक्सीडेटिव प्रोसेस वो हो रहा है, तो दैट मीन जितना होगा उतनी एरोबिक एनर्जी जब प्रोडक्शन होगी तो उतनी जो है वो हमारी एंडोरेंस परफॉर्मेंस को जो है वो इम्प्रूव करेगा। एंड रिसर्च हैज शोन दैट लॉन्ग टर्म प्रोलॉन्ग्ड एंडोरेंस ट्रेनिंग या एंडोरेंस एथलीट में जब वो सब सेलुलर चेंजेस को देखा गया या मेटाबॉलिक एडेप्टेशंस को स्टडी करी गई, तो उनमें देखा गया कि जो माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया का जो नंबर है वो साइज जो है बड़ा है। दैट मीन विथ ग्रेजुअल ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम ऑफ प्रोलॉन्ग्ड इयर्स बिकॉज ऑफ क्रोनिक एडेप्टेशन और उसकी परफॉर्मेंस भी अच्छी हो रही थी, तो दैट मीन्स इंक्रीज इन माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया इज डेफिनेटली वन ऑफ द फैक्टर्स व्हिच कैन असिस्ट द athletic performance, especially in endurance event. And क्या कहते हैं, this has already been done. Now oxidative enzymes. So enzymes are basically the catalyst which is helping in carrying on the metabolic reactions जो है. So हर एक अगर वो aerobic metabolism है तो aerobic enzymes है, oxidative enzymes role play करती हैं, और अगर the anaerobic metabolism है तो anaerobic. So the activity of these enzymes have to be very good, a strong activity has to be there, so that the more functional, the more metabolic reactions can take place and the greater energy liberation can take place. So the oxidative breakdown of fuels and ultimate production of ATP depends on the action of the oxidative enzymes. So and it is seen in the endurance athlete that prolonged sort of endurance training जो है ये oxidative enzymes की capacity को बढ़ाता है. So हमें अब कहने की जरूरत ही नहीं कि oxidative enzymes की activity बढ़ेगी तो क्या होगा, उतना अच्छा एरोबिक मेटाबॉलिज्म होगा, और एरोबिक मेटाबॉलिज्म अच्छा होगा तो उतनी अच्छी एरोबिक प्रोडक्शन होगी, वो फिर आगे क्या है एंडोरेंस परफॉर्मेंस को एनहांस करता है। ठीक है। देन फैट फॉर एनर्जी। सो लाइक हम बायो एनर्जेटिक्स में पढ़ते हैं या एनर्जी रिजर्व में हम पढ़ रहे थे कार्बोहाइड्रेट, फैट एंड प्रोटीन। सो प्रायोरिटी में देखा जाए इज द फॉस्फेजन सिस्टम जो इंस्टेंटली शॉर्ट ड्यूरेशन हाई इंटेंसिटी एक्टिविटी में इस्तेमाल होता है। फिर ग्लाइकोलाइसिस होता है, यानी कि जो कार्बोहाइड्रेट है वो ग्लाइकोजन इज स्टोर्ड इन दी फैट एंड लिवर, जब जरूरत होती है इट इज ब्रोकन डाउन, और ग्लूकोज जो है वो इट इज यूज। एंड देन व्हाट हैपेंस, बट अगर सारा का सारा ग्लाइकोजन अगर वो ब्रेक डाउन हो जाए तो सारा ग्लाइकोजन जो लैक्टिक एसिड में कन्वर्ट हो जाएगा एंड देन इट विल रिजल्ट इन फटीग। सो इट्स सीन दैट fat oxidation also plays an important role. So fat is also broken down, like the triglycerides जो है, it is broken down into 3 molecules of free fatty acid and 1 molecule of glycerol, और ये जो free fatty acid है ये refined form होता है for the oxidation purpose। ये डिस्टेंस रनिंग में बहुत काम आता है। तो अब जब डिस्टेंस रनिंग में what happens is if they're switching on and off, तो अगर glycogen is not completely used and then the switching on to the fat oxidation, what will happen, glycogen is spared। सो एज आई सेड बिफोर, अगर पूरा का पूरा ग्लाइकोजन जो है वो बर्न होगा तो लैक्टिक एसिड में एक्यूमुलेट होगा और उससे फटीग सेट होगा। फटीग कैसे? क्योंकि मसल बाइंडिंग, फिलामेंट्स की जो बाइंडिंग है वो वीक हो जाती है और मस्कुलर एफिशिएंसी कम हो जाता है। ऐसा नहीं है कि ट्रेन्ड एथलीट है वो कहेगा कि आई एम वेरी ट्रेन्ड और मैं तो कर पा रहा हूँ आगे, बट आपने खुद महसूस किया होगा कि आपकी एफिशिएंसी कम हो जाती है। नो डाउट यू आर एबल टू continue even during the conditions of fatigue. So glycogen sparing effect is one of the very positive signs seen when fat is used as a source of energy. So endurance trained जो muscles हैं, so they have a greater efficiency in oxidation of fat and जो इसमें ना क्या कहते हैं, the vacuoles जो कि triglycerides को contain करती हैं, they distribute throughout the muscle fiber and they're very close to the mitochondria. और जैसे mitochondria have told, it is where the aerobic metabolism is taking place. So easily they can be taken up for use as a source of fuel during exercise. And जो enzymes होती हैं जो for beta oxidation, they are also reported that उनकी activity भी बढ़ जाती है following training program. Then muscle glycogen storage. The trained endurance muscle has shown that there is the storage of glycogen जो है वो बढ़ जाता है because maybe probably because of more reliance on the fat oxidation also. That's the reason why. And muscle glycogen store का होना increase होना, it's very crucial to athletic performance. It needs because it's not that if you see the distance races also there only the pace is maintained immediately at the beginning of the race or in between somebody has to overtake या लास्ट में फिनिश करना है तो फॉस्फोजन सिस्टम हो सकता है या ग्लाइकोजन का भी काम आ सकता है. So and then training program में भी muscle glycogen is playing a very important role. Then increased capillarization, that means increase in the number of capillaries surrounding each muscle fiber. So an increase by as much as 15% in the number of capillaries has been reported post endurance training. So increase in the capillaries, I've repeated many times now that what it facilitates, वो क्या अगर कैपिलरीज के नंबर बढ़ेंगे तो क्या फायदा होगा, ज्यादा ब्लड वहां पहुंचेगा, ज्यादा ब्लड होगा तो ऑक्सीजन पहुंचेगी, ऑक्सीजन वहां कैपिलरी टिश्यू लेवल पे पहुंचेगी तो एक्टिव टिश्यू ज्यादा ऑक्सीजन ले पाएंगी और वो उतना माइटोकॉन्ड्रिया में डंप करेंगी और एरोबिक प्रोडक्शन हो पाता है. So it's seen that जो रिसर्च स्टडी कंडक्ट करी गई थी एंड्योरेंस ट्रेन्ड एथलीट पे तो देखा गया 5 to 10% ज्यादा कैपिलरीज उनके लेग मसल्स में पाई गई इसके सेडेंटरी काउंटर पार्ट की अपेक्षा. तो अब क्या है कि बिकॉज यू सी डेवलपमेंट उसी में होगा जो ज्यादा इस्तेमाल हो रहा है ना, यूज एंड डिसयूज की थियोरी है तो लेग मसल्स आर प्रोमिनेंटली यूज तो वहां पे ज्यादा पाया गया. एंड अब ये इंक्रीज कैपिलराइजेशन अगर होता है तो क्या हेल्प करता है, इट हेल्प्स इन एक्सचेंज ऑफ गैसेस, हीट जो एक्सचेंज ऑफ हीट एंड देन वेस्ट एंड न्यूट्रिएंट्स बिटवीन ब्लड एंड द एक्टिव मसल फाइबर्स. सो व्हाट विल हैपन, जो बाय प्रोडक्ट्स जो होती हैं मेटाबॉलिक एंड प्रोडक्ट्स जो वहां जमा नहीं होंगी, इट हेल्प्स इन क्लीनिंग ऑफ ऑल्सो एंड दैट हेल्प्स इन मेंटेनिंग द होम्योस्टेसिस जो कि बहुत जरूरी है एनर्जी प्रोडक्शन के लिए और अगर एक्टिविटी को कंटिन्यूअसली चलते रहना है.
टाइम
Oh my God.
Constraint.
Okay.
Slides you do left.
Okay, I'll just I'll brief. How many minutes more?
Ma'am, maximum 4 to 5 minutes.
4 to 5 minutes. Okay. Muscle hypertrophy is very prominently seen, following a training program जो cross section जो है muscle fiber का बढ़ जाता है and this can, the training जो है it can add up to 30 to 60% of the muscle hypertrophy and because the muscle fiber diameter जो है वो बढ़ जाता है. In this also I would like to add hyperplasia. Hyperplasia is referred to as increase in the number of fibers and whereas hypertrophy is cross section का बढ़ जाना. Hyperplasia, whether it is enhances training, that is yet the research is going on. So how the hyperplasia happens is how they noticed was when during the muscle rupture, when the muscle got injured, तो वहां पे जो injured site था तो वहां पे wear and tear होता है तो वहां protein synthesis and degradation जब हो रहा था, so when they analyzed तो जो एक सिंगल फाइबर इट डेवलप इनटू टू, कोलैटरल डेवलपमेंट हुआ। तो ऐसे सारे एडजेसेंट फाइबर्स में जब हुआ तो कह रहे कि मसल फाइबर जो है वो बढ़ गया है। तो whether training induces that, it's again one or two research has shown that there is hyperplasia, but more emphasis on hypertrophy. So hypertrophied muscles जो है उसकी क्या फीचर्स होती है, you'll find ज्यादा मायोफाइब्रिल्स की जो है नंबर्स बढ़ जाती हैं, और जो ऑक्सीडेटिव एंजाइम्स वो बढ़ जाएंगी, एंड देन जो एटीपी पीसी जो है उसका भी कंटेंट बढ़ जाता है, एंड इंक्रीज स्टोरेज ऑफ ग्लाइकोजन इन दी ट्राइग्लिसराइड्स। दैट मींस ये सारी जो कंपोनेंट्स बढ़ रहे हैं, या तो ये एरोबिक सिस्टम को एनहांस करता है या एनारोबिक फंक्शनिंग को एनहांस करता है। And then adaptation to anaerobic training program, you find the phosphagen system and the glycolytic enzymatic activity जो है वो improve हो जाती है। तो physiologically they say that rule of specificity applies. If you are doing an anaerobic kind of training program, you're going to get the anaerobic benefits, और अगर आप aerobic करते हैं you get to get the benefit of that particular thing. So here if you're doing aerobic training तो oxidative enzymes बढ़ रही थी, in this case जो एनोरोबिक एंजाइम्स है उसकी एक्टिविटी बढ़ जाती हैं। सो एक जो दिस रीइंफोर्सेस अ रिकरिंग थीम दैट फिजियोलॉजिकल ऑल्टरेशंस रिजल्टिंग फ्रॉम ट्रेनिंग आर हाईली स्पेसिफिक। रूल ऑफ स्पेसिफिसिटी जो है टू सम एक्सटेंट इट इज बीइंग परस्यूड हियर। ओके, then you find strength gains होता है anaerobic training से जो है, because of the increase in the girth measure, increase of the क्या कहते हैं जो myofibril contents जो है वो बड़ी हैं, तो उससे जो है strength gains भी बढ़ा हुआ है। and you will find the जो fiber recruitment जो है more FTF fast twitch fiber को जो है वो ज्यादा कॉल ऑन करा जाता है, वो ज्यादा रिक्रूट होती है, because they are designed पर्पस, वो ज्यादा पावरफुल और फोर्सफुल कॉन्ट्रैक्शन कर सकती हैं। ठीक है, देन कार्डियोरेस्पिरेटरी चेंजेस जो इंक्रीज इन द साइज ऑफ द हार्ट। तो हार्ट का जो फॉलोइंग ट्रेनिंग प्रोग्राम देखा गया है, जो स्पेशली जो लेफ्ट वेंट्रिकल है उसकी जो साइज जो है, कैविटी का साइज बढ़ जाता है फॉलोइंग एंडोरेंस ट्रेनिंग, पर जो वेंट्रिकल की वॉल की थिकनेस वो उसमें ज्यादा चेंज नहीं पाया गया, तो इसे वॉल्यूम इफेक्ट कहा गया इन एंडोरेंस एथलीट। देन दे रिसर्च किया इवन दी पावर रेसिस्टेंस स्पोर्ट में जो पार्टिसिपेट कर रहे हैं उनमें भी कुछ चेंजेस आया है क्या। जब इकोकार्डियोग्राफी करी गई तो देखा कैविटी का साइज पर तो चेंज नहीं आया, वॉल की थिकनेस जो है वो बढ़ गई थी। तो दोनों केस में क्या था कि अब कैविटी के साइज का बढ़ना है, मतलब डायस्टोल के दौरान ज्यादा ब्लड फिल होगा, तो जब नेक्स्ट स्ट्रोक वॉल्यूम होगा, इजेक्शन होगा, मोर ब्लड इज पंप्ड आउट, सो दैट विल इंक्रीज द स्ट्रोक वॉल्यूम एंड कार्डियक आउटपुट, वो एंडोरेंस परफॉर्मेंस को बढ़ाएगा। बट इन द केस ऑफ द पावर स्पोर्ट, जहां पे कैविटी की साइज तो बढ़ी नहीं, वॉल की थिकनेस बढ़ी, क्योंकि आपका ट्रेनिंग अकॉर्डिंगली वैसे ही था। So with every the contraction, what happens, it's so forceful contraction, so it's called myocardial contractility। इतनी forceful होती है कि ज्यादा ब्लड इजेक्ट होता है, तो स्ट्रोक वॉल्यूम वहां बढ़ता है। So these are the two changes observed in the cardiac hypertrophy. So that's a positive sign seen in the athlete who have taken part in long-term training program. Stroke volume I have already explained. रेस्टिंग ब्रैडिकार्डिया, ट्रेन्ड एथलीट्स में देखा गया कि जो हार्ट रेट है वो क्रोनिक एडेप्टेशन की वजह से वो कम हो जाता है, वेरी लो, एज लो एज 40 बीट्स पर मिनट। सो व्हाई व्हाट यू से, कौन सी अच्छी सिस्टम होती है, सर्कुलेटरी सिस्टम विच इज द मोस्ट एफिशिएंट सिस्टम, जो कि कम नंबर ऑफ टाइम बीट करती है, देयरबाय पंपिंग मोर ब्लड। सो ट्रेन्ड एथलीट्स में रेस्टिंग ब्रैडिकार्डिया, लोअर रेस्टिंग हार्ट रेट को हम रेस्टिंग ब्रैडिकार्डिया देते हैं, कहते हैं। सो दैट इज one of the very prominent observations seen, and you all sitting there, you all know your resting heart rate, you would have known that it is much lower when compared to your sedentary counterpart. Fatigue, so fatigue can deter the your performance as well. So now what happens is what we can say that when your fatigue sets in because of excessive lactic accumulation within the मसल, सो मसल बाइंडिंग एफिशिएंसी कम हो जाती है, फिर वो फाइनली आपका परफॉर्मेंस को अफेक्ट करता है। इससे क्या होगा कि आपका मस्कुलर स्ट्रेंथ कम हो सकता है, रिएक्शन मूवमेंट टाइम कैन बी इट कैन एक्सटेंड, इट कैन बी प्रोलॉन्ग, एजिलिटी एंड न्यूरोमस्कुलर कोऑर्डिनेशन आल्सो इज डिटर्ड, concentration alert जो है alertness where you have to focus on that particular event, you are not able to do it, and whole body efficiency जो है it is lowered. then individual differences in mind, one needs to take few factors, whether it's age, gender, level of physical fitness, level of growth and development, the trained state of an athlete, whether it's a novice or a advanced player, his mental readiness. As I said before, बहुत अच्छा athlete है, but the day comes he doesn't perform well. All these factors have to be kept in mind. The psychology of the athlete, all these factors have to be taken into consideration while scheduling his training program. If the individual differences is not considered, one cannot expect. Then limits of excessive training, I think so this will be taken by somebody else in the sports training session, that how excessive training can lead to, burn the body. It's, it's pushing the athlete physically beyond his capacity. So that can have, lot of repercussions physically and mentally, and it doesn't serve any purpose, और आपकी performance को जो है वो deter कर सकता है. सो जो ओवर ट्रेनिंग सिंड्रोम्स हैं कैसे होती है, जो एथलीट ओवर ट्रेन होता है, कभी एथलीट अपने आप को पुश भी करते हैं in the quest of goal, they go for excessive training. So you'll find there is variation in the heart rate, oxygen uptake जो है, you can say the oxygen uptake अगर वो ज्यादा नहीं हो रहा है, and then you blood lactate response, he gets tired very soon, जो maximal capacity वो reduce हो जाती है, and performance जो है it is not improving. So that can be one sign. Other signs क्या है, sleeplessness, insomnia है, indecisiveness है, sweaty palms है, blood pressure कभी raise हो सकता है. All these factors are training overtraining syndrome है. The nutritional ergogenics, Dr. Rakesh has already taken, so I will not like to go much. So thank you. So the time was what?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, that's perfectly okay, ma'am. The session was very informative and very knowledgeable, I must say. Just comments are, I'm flooded with the comments that they need more sessions by Sandhya, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. It was wonderful, and informative session.
Yeah.
So, ma'am, I have a lot of questions there. I can see in the comment box. So I'm taking a few of it. One of the PE teacher has asked that what are the precautions we can take to reduce lactic threshold?
To reduce lactate threshold.
Yes.
Okay. So how can you, that means first of all, programming your training schedule for your athlete. You have to consider the individual differences. You have to take into consideration the nutritional जो aspect है उनका, जो carbohydrate का जो इनको जो intake है, dietary intake है, that has to be done. You see that they are not overtraining when they reach the stage of fatigue. Recovery is very important factor. एक जो ट्रेनिंग शेड्यूल के बाद जो है, द एथलीट इज नॉट हैविंग प्रॉपर रिकवरी इज वेरी वेरी एसेंशियल फैक्टर, बिकॉज होता है ना कि कहते हैं ऑल्टरनेटिव डेज में ट्रेनिंग लाइट एंड हार्ड, बट सम ऑफ देम व्हेन दे ओवर स्ट्रेस, सो व्हाट विल हैपन, जब आप रिकवरी नहीं दे रहे हैं तो व्हाट विल हैपन, द फटीग विल सेट इन. ओके, so then this is what you can do is, and inside chemically जो है what that is not within your reach, that how you're thinking that we are talking of the glycogen sparing effect या oxidation of fat जो है, but training modulations में आप change कर सकते हैं. You need to be more fitter, you need to develop your fitness level, so जो training modulation has to be worked upon.
Yeah, another question is ma'am, that how can we know the how much our body has fast twitch fibers and slow twitch fibers? Is there any test for this in India apart from biopsy?
No, apart from muscle biopsy is the best technique in India. पटियाला में है कि नहीं मुझे पता नहीं है, बट जो टैलेंट आइडेंटिफिकेशन होता है हम यंग एज में स्टार्ट करते हैं, इट इज जस्ट बाय फ्लुक, अच्छा ये अच्छा दौड़ रहा है, ही इज रनिंग वेरी फास्ट, लेट मी पुट हिम इन दैट. और स्कूल टीम्स में जो अच्छा है तो उसको खो खो में भी डाल दिया, उसको हर स्पोर्ट में डाल दिया, क्या कहते हैं, द स्पेसिफिक प्रोसेस इज नॉट ऑब्टेन. बट फॉरेन कंट्रीज में जो टैलेंट आइडेंटिफिकेशन प्रोसेस जो होता है वो जो साइंटिफिकली फॉलो होता है, तो मसल बायोप्सी इज वन ऑफ द बेस्ट टेक्निक. अदरवाइज यू नीड टू अंडरगो स्पोर्ट्स स्पेसिफिक फिटनेस टेस्टिंग. उसके लिए आप ऑस्ट्रेलियन स्पोर्ट्स कमीशन को रेफर कीजिए, उसमें पूरा उनका जो है एक फिजियोलॉजिकल एंड फिजिकल बेसिस फॉर एथलेटिक परफॉर्मेंस उनका ना, वो हर स्पोर्ट की अलग अलग टेस्ट हैं, जस्ट फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर हम बोले कि जो 12 मिनट रन वॉक टेस्ट है वो एक मैराथनर के लिए हम यूज कर सकते हैं, बट नॉट फॉर एन फुटबॉलर. फुटबॉलर के लिए हम उसको यूज नहीं कर सकते. क्यों? इट शुड मिमिक द नेचर ऑफ द एक्टिविटी. फुटबॉल इज इंटरमिटेंट स्पोर्ट, उसके लिए यो इंटरमिटेंट स्पोर्ट आ गया है. सो अकॉर्डिंगली यू हैव टू डू दैट. मसल बायोप्सी इज वन ऑफ द टेक्निक.
The next question I'm taking is, exercises help in the enlargement of heart chambers, and how it is beneficial in sports performance?
Sports performance, I have already told, everything oxygen. Everything is oxygen. It is repetitive. So oxygen.
Yeah, the question is quite repetitive, and a few questions are like out of the presentation, so I'm not taking these questions. Already, the time is already over.
They can mail it to me. In case they have. Enlargement of heart means increase जो ventricular cavity का अगर साइज बढ़ेगा, पहले इतना था, अगर बढ़ जाएगा तो डायस्टोल के दौरान ज्यादा वॉल्यूम अंदर फिल होगा. अब ज्यादा होगा तो क्या बेनिफिट है? क्यों? ड्यूरिंग द नेक्स्ट सिस्टोल व्हाट विल हैपन? मोर ब्लड इज इजेक्टेड आउट, सो ग्रेटर स्ट्रोक वॉल्यूम. अब ग्रेटर स्ट्रोक वॉल्यूम मींस ज्यादा कार्डियक आउटपुट बढ़ेगा. क्योंकि व्हाट हैपेंस व्हेन यू सी द इन द पावर स्पोर्ट, व्हाट विल हैपन? कैविटी का साइज नहीं बढ़ रहा है, वॉल की थिकनेस बढ़ी है, तो व्हाट विल हैपन? जो इजेक्शन सिस्टोल होता है, जो कॉन्ट्रैक्शन, इट्स सो फास्ट. क्यों? मसल्स में स्ट्रेंथ है, सो द कॉन्ट्रैक्शन इज वेरी फोर्सफुल, सो अगेन द स्ट्रोक वॉल्यूम इज इंक्रीज्ड. वो इकोकार्डियोग्राफी के द्वारा जो है वो टेस्ट करते हैं उसको.
Yes, the next question is, ma'am, is there any effect of exercise in cardiac dystrophy, myotonic, due to long endurance training?
No, I couldn't get the question.
It's like that only, that is there any effect of exercise in cardiac dystrophy due to long endurance training?
Long term endurance training, it depends on the condition, what type of training one has done. You see the resultant effect, what you find in an athlete, जो conditions पाई जाती हैं, you'll have to see कि what has caused exactly. So it depends from individual to individual, it differs. You have it is highly individual differences होता है उसमें.
Yeah, that's all for today's questions, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much.
It was a wonderful and knowledgeable session.
Time was less, I had to speed up. Time was less, so I had to speed up. So Russia.
It was very wonderful presentation, ma'am. It was very wonderful presentation, very thoroughly explained, all the points, and it was like, a complete package, we can say, exercise physiology. We need more time for this.
Yeah.
This presentation complemented.
One session is not over, because when you need to rush, leave certain points, छूट जाता है. So anyway, some other time. So
I have again taken your class.
Yes. Now, on behalf of PEFI, I would like to thank both the eminent speakers. It was really very privilege for me to be a part of this, and to be with you on screen.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
And for the participant, I would like to say a quote here. The mind is like a parachute. It works much better when it is open. And I hope that this training, Train the Trainer program is acting well as a parachute for all of you. You will able to open up your mind, your knowledge. Like as when we start working, वो थोड़ा सा college time से निकल जाते हैं, एक learning का जो हमारा process रुकता है, we are into the jobs. So I hope कि इसने एक parachute का काम किया होगा, और आपकी सबकी learning जो update हो रही होगी, किसी को किसी भी तरह की जो queries होगी हमारे session से, हमारे eminent speakers से, आप सबकी वो सारी queries solve हो रही होंगी. With this hope, I'm signing off.
Okay.
Nandini Rawat signing off this Train the Trainer program.
Okay.
PEFI, thank you. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am.